Start thinking about ways to. Right.
Mhm. I mean, we have people from the area here today. Multiple.
Like we're all coming.
Mhm.
Spread the blame, like outlier
Okay,
and like
distribute them.
distribute it.
Hmm.
Like put it on folks. I know it's illegal, but other community boards do it. That's a lot. Like community board on the Upper East Side where my sister lives.
Mhm.
Every single committee meeting,
Mhm.
board meeting,
Right.
all like.
I would be grateful to you.
Weird, because Apple does it too, they
Uh-huh.
post it right there,
Mhm.
as soon as I walked outside the station, this, I saw the thing with the.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
And it's like,
And everyone sees it. Everyone sees it.
right there.
Yeah. Yeah. Mhm.
We could try to get like those, fire protectors.
The what?
The fire protectors.
The like clear sheets? Yeah.
That's what the. That's incredible.
Uh-huh.
They have to do like that sheet right in there.
And they just stick it in.
Take it out.
Okay. Interesting.
And I know.
But you're not supposed to post things in the subway, but you know, what are they gonna do? Right.
Send that via email, Charlie.
Sorry, what's that, Julio?
I'll send that via email.
Thank you. So what are you saying? Well. Just getting voted till you. That would be.
I don't know for certain that it's coming.
Okay.
I'm just putting that out. I can text her.
Jeremy get there.
Okay. Thanks for doing quorum shenanigans. How have you been? I haven't seen you in a minute.
Joining us on Zoom. We have not started yet. We are looking to see if we could get a quorum in the room.
What's your favorite? Really? Oh, whoa, right? So it was like a call?
Yeah, in the bed. Oh. My daughter's got to go to free parking, so. When back in the day when I was, you went to the prom with the.
Oh, this like this is fun.
No, but all the time. It doesn't have to be a romantic, I don't even know, couple people. Not dating. They go each other off with friends, right, and people play. I don't think you
Right.
But see, but the danger field.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
Yes, it is. We cut the committee down to 7, and she makes 4. But now I'm not ready.
Go ahead, whenever you're ready. Good evening, everyone. We have made quorum for the Housing Committee, so just give us a few moments to start the meeting. Thank you.
Doing better, a little bit better every day. I got the stitches out today. I'm excited. So now it's about PT,
Yeah.
and the PT guy is like actually kind of a friend. He was like, "Oh, I want you to do my like a baby room for me and my wife." And so I'm like, amazing.
Great.
So he's already given me homework, and so I'm kind of excited to do like starting.
Forward progress.
Yeah.
Great.
Oh, God, thank God.
We were there for a while. I know both.
Who was supposed to send me a code?
Keep going.
Ideally,
So shoulder surgery on the 13th, and then all the recovery afterward. It's weird, like having a T-Rex arm. It's like,
Glance at the agenda. Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
So, okay, we're not. Yeah. I didn't realize. So then oh, I missed it. I did.
Thank you. It is warm today. I'm not ready for summer.
Yeah. See what I mean? Like, how am I, how is it? Yeah. No, 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 no. I'm glad you clarified and now I have a better sense of
Oh my God.
like my,
Uh,
like I gotta talk to the doctor about that.
Like our last long.
what I sent you
Mhm.
is what we're gonna eat.
Yeah, I know.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
funny.
they're all here.
Yeah. Yeah. It'll be interesting though, because I wonder, I don't know the firm that they use for the search building,
Okay.
and they are not necessarily set for building fees. They're shopping that around. So the stuff that I sent you was like the generic,
So I believe this building is the one that would be built by 2010.
yes, correct,
And Michelle here does all of the types of cabins.
yeah,
So she can give us some more specifics on that.
yeah.
I don't know if we have anyone presenting like the construction companies here, but I do know that
The
like,
construction company, I don't recognize the thing.
oh, well, I mean, the development's called Waterfront,
Yeah,
right? I know, I presume these. Men plus the former chief of staff is in right there, so
oh, okay,
Watermark and Watermark's lobby.
okay,
No one fashion has been out of rural home.
okay, gotcha,
So that's the thing.
okay, noted,
Yeah.
noted.
So we need to be tough.
Yeah.
Okay,
This thing is-
I can't say
know.
anything, but I can.
Be inquisitive.
I can be inquisitive and you can ask me questions and I am
Yep.
more than open to answer.
Great.
Yeah. Just give me their name. There you go. That'll teach you next time. Always break them. Everybody that's platform, everybody else. Right? This room is. Yeah. we don't come in.
Hey everyone, thank you for being here. We have the AC on and we're gonna go ahead and get started. Really sorry that we're starting a little bit late, had some technical difficulties, but again, it's really nice outside and we're here. So nice round of applause to you all for being here tonight and on Zoom. So we'll go ahead and kick it off to Jeremy for attendance.
Thank you. When I call your name, if you're joining us on Zoom, please remember to unmute yourself, acknowledge your name, and then mute yourself again. We will start with the Housing Committee. Antoinette Martinez.
Here.
Thank you. Damian Andrade. Thank you. Jalea Bailey. Jeremy Kaplan. Thank you. Aaron Keith. Thank you. Maria Roca. Thank you. Maria, you do not count towards quorum. John Santori. Thank you. John, you do not count towards quorum. Faye Walker. Nicholas Jackson. Thank you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the room. Housing has a quorum. We'll move on to land use landmarks. We'll start with Diana Gonzalez. Thank you. Aaron Keith. Thank you. Joan Body. Thank you. Gabino Morales Escamilla. Julia Melzer Harris. Thank you. Julia, you do not count towards quorum. Nicholas Jackson. Thank you. Jeremy Kaplan. Thank you. Paul Mack. Antoinette Martinez. Thank you. Karen Rolnick. Thank you. Damaris Santiago. John Santori. Thank you. John, you do not count towards quorum. Maria Roca. Thank you. Maria, you do not count towards quorum. 7 in the room, you have a quorum.
Word. So tonight we're having a joint meeting with housing and with land use, but before we jump into the presentation and discussion on the rezoning of 783 Fourth Avenue, we do have a resolution on the floor from last month's board meeting that the housing committee is going to be voting on. So thank you for being here. So we have a quorum, so we could go ahead and vote on that. Damien, did you?
You should add it to the agenda.
I don't,
So we need to amend the agenda to include.
Oh, yeah.
Is there any objection to amending the agenda to include the rent guidelines board resolution from the committee members? Hearing and seeing none, so amended.
at our last board meeting, Damien had brought up a resolution to the floor on the rent guidelines board. Before he goes through and reads his resolution for us to vote on, just really quickly wanted to help provide some context. So the next slide. Could just go to the next slide.
Next.
Oh, can I figure? I'm not gonna figure it. Just because I can't see my eyes. All right, so just in case folks aren't familiar with rent stabilization, this applies to apartments and buildings with 6 or more units built between 1947 and 1973, and to some buildings built before 1947. So landlords in rent stabilized buildings can only increase rent by a percentage that's determined by the Rent Guidelines Board. And the Rent Guideline Board, they consist of 9 members, all of whom are appointed by the mayor. There are 2 members that are appointed that represent tenant interests, one of whom used to serve as a board member of CB7. And then there are 2 members appointed that represent owner interests, and 5 members are, including the chairperson, are appointed and represent the general public. So for 2025, the proposed increase for 1-year leases is a range from 1.75% to 4.75%. And for 2-year leases, the range was amended. So now it's 3.75% to 7.75% increase. So this is what the Rent Guidelines Board is looking to vote on at the end of this month. Here you can see, I know this is probably really small for you all to see, and I apologize, but you can see over the years, so these decisions are made yearly and they're voted on, and you can see just a record here of past increases that have been voted on and taken into effect. And there's actually a number of public hearings that are going to be taking place. There's one scheduled for tomorrow, and the final vote is scheduled for Monday, June 30th, up in El Museo del Barrio at 7 o'clock. So if there are any approved changes, they're going to apply to leases beginning on and after October 1st of this year. So the proposed resolution and I'll let Damien read through all of this, but just to quickly summarize, what we're looking to pass is calling for the Rent Guidelines Board to pause proposed rent increases and instituting a rent rollback. So that's what we're voting on tonight. So Damien, if you could just read through your resolution. Thank you.
Hey y'all again. I'll be back and I'm here. So I'd like to introduce a resolution. So whereas on June 27, 2025, the New York City Rent Guidelines Board, which is the RGB, will vote on a proposed rent increase of 1.75% to 4.75% for one-year leases and 3.75% to 7.75% for two-year leases on rent stabilized apartments affecting over 2 million New Yorkers. And whereas Brooklyn Community District 7, which includes Sunset Park, Windsor Terrace, and the surrounding areas, is home to a large population of working class, immigrant, and low-income residents, many of whom live in rent-stabilized housing and are already facing immense financial pressures. And whereas these proposed rent increases would place an additional and potentially devastating burden on tenants, increasing the risk of housing insecurity, displacement, and evictions, especially for families, seniors, and disabled residents and essential workers. And whereas our community continues to recover from the economic impacts of COVID-19's pandemic, and with the rising cost of living, inflation, and limited wage growth putting more strain on household budgets, and whereas housing is a basic human right, clock it, and the preservation of affordable and stable housing is essential to the health, safety, and future of our neighborhoods. Now, there be it resolved that Brooklyn Community Board 7 formally calls on the Rent Guidelines Board to pause proposed rent increases, and be it further resolved that Community Board 7 calls on the Rent Guidelines Board and Mayor Eric Adams to institute a rent rollback, decreasing rents from their current levels. Be it further resolved that Community Board 7 publicly declares its support for a rent rollback and as necessary measures to protect our working families, prevent displacement, and ensure housing stability for the residents of our community. That should be all.
Have a second? Thank you.
Jeremy Kaplan said.
Second, Whirls. We can, okay. Sean?
And can you confirm the date of the vote?
Oh, June 30th, it says 27.
Should the be changed to June 30th?
Block it, y'all, sorry. Block it, happy Pride.
Anyone else have any, Julio? Is there anyone on the line?
Sorry, I'm stealing Aaron's microphone. So I know when this was presented at the board last month before we lost quorum, the resolution was for a rent freeze, and then this resolution calls for a rent rollback. One, I'm curious why the change, and two, if you would be open to returning to a rent freeze, which is consistent with what our state assembly member and our council member are calling for.
Was a call on the floor for an amendment to include a rent rollback that was incorporated into the resolution. Would you?
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, we first said it was a rent freeze, but there was an amendment that was introduced right before we lost quorum to change it to a rent rollback instead of freeze.
Thank you. Would you consider a friendly amendment to return that to a rent freeze and not a rollback?
Oh, sorry. Girl, my rent is too much, and my family cannot afford it. A girl wants to stay in Brooklyn.
Jeremy?
Yeah, there's the Brooklyn hearing on Monday. And when you go to them, I'm a rent stabilized tenant. I always go, I would say 95% of the tenants that show up at the hearings ask for rent rollbacks. This year is even more concerning because of the Eric Adams increases and the fact that people have lost wages, inflation is so high, like more than ever, the data shows that a rollback is absolutely needed because Eric Adams has increased the rent so much that we need to peel back on the harm that it's causing. And the problem is a rent freeze right now doesn't provide that relief. And I think right now what we've seen is that, and I know because, that palpably as an electoral slogan, people have been saying rent freeze, but a vast majority, if you go to any of these hearings, I would say 95% of the tenants are saying rent rollback. And so it's a difference of sort of electorally what people are saying rent freeze, but basically we absolutely need a rent rollback. And that's why the amendment.
Thank you. Does anyone on the line have any questions? Or want to make a comment? No hands. Anyone else in the room? All right, let's go ahead and, oh, there is, okay. Pat?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I have a question. I know that you're changing what you're asking for now as compared to the board meeting, which I kind of understand, but my question is, what are the realities of this being coming close to what you're asking for?
I mean, to be fair, these community boards are just advisements. So we're just making an
Absolutely.
advisement. So it's just making sure that we're standing for the community and making sure that the community gets represented. But at the end of the day, even if we vote yes or no, it still makes a difference because it encourages other community boards to speak out and say the same. I mean, we did the same thing with my ceasefire resolution. I mean, it took me 3 months to get it on the floor, but it still passed, and we didn't see any changes with that. But it's still good to make an announcement and bring up this
Right.
issue, so residents of Sunset Park, Windsor Terrace, and the nearby residents are able to know that we are pushing and we're hearing them and making sure that stuff like this gets brought up in these meetings.
My second question is just to Jeremy. Jeremy, do we know what other community boards are doing or recommending or suggesting at all?
I assume you mean Jeremy Laufer, and no, I do not.
Yes, Jeremy Lawfer. Thank you.
So Pat,
Thank you.
the Rent Guidelines Board had recently decreased the
Yes.
the range for 1-year leases. So I will say that for 2-year leases, I apologize. So there has been already considered a decrease in regards to the range that they'll be voting on.
Right.
And yeah, any change that's gonna happen has to start from somewhere.
No, I'm in total support. I mean, my daughter is a rent stabilized tenant, so I hear you all. So thank you.
Anyone else on the line? All right, looks like no one has any, okay. All right, so we'll go ahead and call roll for the vote.
When I call your name, please say yes for support, no for not supporting, or abstention. An abstention counts as a no. Diana Gonzalez? I'm sorry, I'm doing the wrong committee. We'll get back to you. Antoinette Martinez?
Yes.
Antoinette Martinez, yes. Damian Andrade? Damian Andrade, of course. Jalea Bailey? Jeremy Kaplan? Jeremy Kaplan, yes. Erin Keefe?
Yes.
Erin Keefe, yes. Maria Roca? Maria Roca, yes. John Santori? John Santori, yes. Faye Walker? Nicholas Jackson? Nicholas Jackson, yes. 7-0.
That's what I thought, and the chair clarified that that's no longer the case, right? She's right. Oh, but they don't count towards quorum, is that what?
Correct. They don't count towards quorum. They're not committee members, but under our bylaws, because this is the first time it's appeared at a committee meeting, Karen can vote. Correct.
Karen Rolnick. Diana Gonzalez. Patricia Ruiz. Pat?
Yeah, I'm here. Yes, yes, yes.
Is there anyone else in the room that's a board member?
No, Joan. Oh, you're behind. Joan. Sorry. I'm sorry, Joan Bottom.
Eight to two, I thought it was nine. Eight? Oh, okay. Oh, sure. Thank you, guys.
All right, next up, we are going to hear from our visitors today. Are you ready? Yeah, absolutely.
We have some hard copies too that we could share with everybody. Go ahead. Thank you. Yeah. The digital version, yeah, we already shared with Jeremy.
Yeah, we will. Yeah. It'll be included in the minutes when we send it out. Sure. Yeah, we can do it tomorrow morning. Yeah. No, just the presentation he means. Yeah, yeah. Wow. This is something. This 11 by 17 paper.
The screen's up there. I say, good. Are you controlling the
I
screen?
know. Absolutely.
Wait.
New York Times on the subway. No, this is 11 by 17. This is a double page size. That's such a, this is 8.5 by 11.
People got cards out.
I don't know.
All right. You tell us what to do. We'll go when you say go.
Oh, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, rock and roll.
I
let's
don't want to
do that.
violate any protocol. Hello, everybody. Hello, cyber audience, and hello, everybody in reality. My name is Eric Palatnik, and I'm an attorney, and I'm representing Watermark Capital, which is an applicant in a pending ULURP application that is not certified, is not in its public review yet, is in its preliminary or pre-certification stages, and we wanted to introduce it to you so that you can understand what we're up to, what we're doing, and get your input. It's for the St. Rocco site. I'm sure you're all familiar with it. It's in an M1 1D zoning district. St. Rocco's is no longer there, obviously. The diocese has leased the property to our client, and our client would like to apply for the rezoning. Now, many of you may not know me, and I wouldn't expect you to, but some of you do. I've been here on many applications through the years. One application that I had a few years ago was 737 4th Avenue. That taught me a lot, right? And if you don't learn from history, you're doomed to repeat it. So the application that we're here for tonight is coming to you with that as our history lesson, with studying what you've been doing with Arrow Linen, And we have been crafting, while you've been doing what you've been doing with Arrow Linen, because I knew what you needed from the beginning. I knew what you wanted, because I was here on 737 Fourth Avenue. And what you have in front of you is something that we've been crafting, a proposal, while you've been doing what you've been doing on Arrow Linen. And it's in almost identical vein, spirit, and concept. And the idea of it is to provide nearly 40% of the units as affordable. And you'll see that we're doing that at an AMI of approximately, or averaging 58% AMI. Now, that's not just something that we're coming in here to negotiate with you about. We're committed to it. We wanted to save you aggravation. We wanted to save ourselves aggravation. We didn't want to fight with you. We didn't want to start a land use war. We wanted to create housing on a site that's underutilized, that's sitting vacant right now, that's not really good for much as of right. It's an M11D, and you guys unfortunately got the lion's share of M11D districts in this city, which are not really too useful. And we'd like to do something productive. So the first thing we did, sticking with the model that we've learned years ago, was went and met with Michelle. That was one of the very first things, because I know that unless I come to you with something that's a true public good, something that's really going to create something that you could be proud of, that's going to create the affordable housing that was just spoken about a second ago. I heard the discussion. Yeah, everybody said it's not going to happen, but we want to get our voices out there. We want to see it happen. Well, that's how 737 Fourth Avenue started. When I walked into your board 5 years ago, that was a concept. That wasn't even a thought. And that's how it got going. So what I'm about to present to you shows you that. I want to tell you something else, because I know there's a lot of rumors going on out there, right? Rumor mill starts. Opportunities for Better Tomorrow was originally included in the application to be a part of it. We wanted them to be a part of it, and they wanted to be a part of it. You can ask them, they'll tell you that, probably, I think. And we worked with them for a long time. We couldn't come to meeting of the minds on things, primarily the amount of space that they needed to capture their program. We just don't have it. It's not even a matter of even if we want to provide it. We do. I'm going to show you the plans. It just wasn't enough space for them. We offered them XYZ square space that we had, and they needed double or triple to meet their program. They wanted everything under one umbrella. They want to be in one place. So that part of our equation is not yet worked out, and we're willing to talk to you and learn what you all would like to see as far as another community good within the buildings. And if that's not what you want to see, whatever else you may want to see. I just want to let you know, that's where we started. We did all of this legwork before coming to you. Michelle has been hard at work, her whole team, running numbers and figuring everything out. And I'll start now and I'll go into the proposal. If you can go to who's controlling the screen? What's his name? Abaye. Abaye, can you go to the next page, please? Okay, so I'm going to read what's up there on the screen. I don't know if they can make that any bigger. Is that possible? Oh, you've all got this. Okay, great. So this is everything I just mentioned this moment ago. You can see the building is on the right-hand side of what we're proposing. It's just an artist rendering. The architect happens to be here tonight. If you don't love the rendering, it's just paper and ink. It's not done yet. We're here to talk to you about things. We're not trying to create something and tell you this is what we're doing. But it's a partnership between Watermark Capital and, as I said, Michelle, Fifth Avenue Committee, otherwise known as Fifth Avenue Committee. The project is going to provide 226 units, and approximately 83 of those will be affordable at option level 1. That's the basic. I'm not going to repeat much else here. This tells you everything I just told you a moment ago. So go to the next page, please, Abaya. Watermark Capital is a Brooklyn-based developer. They're local. They build only in New York City, and they build a lot in Brooklyn. We could show you projects that they've done if you want to see it. There are many of them. They've partnered with the diocese before. This is not their first partnership with the diocese, and they have a good working business relationship with one another. The diocese is sort of like a silent partner, even though I keep mentioning their name here. They are not a part of this development. They simply leased the property to Watermark, and I'm mentioning them so you all know what's going on. They don't really have too much of a say or any say in what's going on here and what we're proposing. But they did lease us the property, and I wanted to mention that. If you can go to the next slide, please. Is this you? All right, so I'll let Michelle speak for me.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for being here, both in person and online. Michelle Delauz, I'm the Executive Director of the Fifth Avenue Committee, who folks, just in case folks don't know. Delauz, Delauz. And Fifth Avenue Committee is a 47-year-old nonprofit comprehensive community development corporation whose mission is to advance economic, social, and racial justice in New York City. And one of the ways that we do that is by building and managing affordable housing. So we completed the two most recent 100% affordable housing projects in the neighborhood, the 50 units over the Sunset Park Library, the first of its kind in the city, creating 100% affordable housing over a new and expanded public library. Took a lot of years to get that model off the ground. And then the other is Sunset Ridge at 63rd Street and 4th Avenue, which is 84 units, 100% affordable for seniors. But we also own other affordable housing in the community, and we provide services to thousands of residents, actually in Community Board 7. I just appreciate the RGB vote, because I think many folks know that our tenant organizers and tenant leaders at Brooklyn Tenants United are at all those RGB hearings and testifying. So appreciate the board's stance on that. I'll just say that FAC has developed, kind of focusing in on the affordable housing piece and our experience. We've developed over 1,500 units of affordable housing over our history. We have over 2,000 units of affordable housing currently in our pipeline, both new construction and preservation of existing affordable housing. So we're building on a long track record, and we're really happy to be here with Watermark to share this innovative idea, honestly, that as Eric said, is kind of an evolution from conversations that have been happening in the community board, and quite honestly elsewhere, because all community boards, many community boards, but especially this community board, are all asking for more affordability, deeper affordability, as part of trying to address the acute affordable housing crisis that we have in the city. I can go ahead and go to the next slide. I think I might be, this is the slide that just tells you how bad the affordable housing crisis and the housing crisis overall is. So I think folks know that the vacancy rate in the city of New York is less than 1.5%, that the vacancy rate for units that are affordable is actually less than 1%. And of course, the rent burden, where people are paying more than 30% of their income, is very, very high. So all the reasons that you guys gave in your resolution related to the RGB vote is a real thing. I know, because there were a couple of folks who voted no on the resolution. It's also true that other costs are going up for owners, and that is a real thing too. But housing is increasingly very, very difficult to rent and to buy in this city. So this project obviously is trying to address specifically both the housing shortage and the affordable housing shortage that exists in the city of New York. We can go to the next slide, and I'll pass it back to Eric to talk about zoning districts.
I didn't realize that I thought Michelle was an institution in New York City. I guess just in the work that I do. But we're happy and proud to have her be a part of it and have their organization be a part of it. The slide that you're on right now, let me catch up with you here. So what you're all looking at right now is the zoning map slide, zoning map change slide. On the left-hand side of the screen, you see what the districts are right now. You can also see them right up here, which is really kind of cool. I noticed you guys have. We are on the left, we're smack, or not smack, but the edge of an M11D zoning district. We are also at the edge of an R7A zoning district, which, if you look at the maps on the screen, is to the left. And we're also a few blocks away from an R8A district, which, if you look on the maps, to the right. It's this little pocket of M11D that's left on 4th Avenue, and presumably because St. Rocco's was there all those years, and who was going to rezone for St. Rocco's because they were good doing what they were doing. So what we're asking to do is to rezone the front portion of the property 100 feet in depth from 4th Avenue between 27th and 28th. So we're asking you to make that into an R8A zoning district. I'll continue on. In the back, we're asking to rezone it to an R7A zoning district. And if you go to the next slide, please. That just shows you in a little more clarity what we're doing, so you could see that. And if you go to the next slide, please. Okay, the next slide starts to tell you what we're doing and what it's all about. And these series of these slides will start to really drill in and explain it to you. The overall concept is that there's going to be 3 buildings we're proposing. One of the buildings, one of the properties is being given to Fifth Avenue Committee. A donor lot is what we're calling it. Whether it's given to them, whether it's somehow conveyed to them, or whether it's they're somehow given the right to develop upon it. We haven't figured out the mechanism yet exactly. But the idea of the overarching concept of this proposal is that it's impossible for a private developer on their own, or very difficult unless they're earning incredibly good rents, to provide the deep level of affordability that your board would want to see. You just saw it, what you did on Arrow Linen. They're in a little bit of a different location, and the rents they're going to achieve over there in the marketplace are going to be a bit higher than what you would get over here. As a result, we had to come up with something creative to do to create the affordable housing. And the idea that we came up with is to literally give property to an affordable housing developer, somebody that specializes in deep, affordable housing, somebody familiar with the funding sources, somebody who knows how to get their hands on the available funds that are there, and somebody that's committed to the community. So the housing that we're proposing here in the development, and I'm going to go through it in more detail in a second, is including MIH housing in 2 of the buildings pursuant to MIH, and also pursuant to MIH housing in the Fifth Avenue Committee's building. But the Fifth Avenue Committee's building is going to be at I think it's 50% AMI is the AMI that their building is going to service. So when we're done, you can see here, I'll go through this with you a little bit. I'll just read down the right-hand side here. The total FAR for the entire development, it's going to be viewed as one zoning lot, is 5.78. The combined floor area amongst all of 3 buildings is 188,000. Building A will have 80,000 square feet of floor area for residential, 3,000 square feet of ground floor commercial. There's not much commercial space in these buildings. That's the only commercial space. Building B will have 75,000 square feet, and building C will have 29,000 square feet. And that's the building that I was just talking about for Fifth Avenue Committee. And go to the next slide. I think they'll give you some of the juice here a little bit to start breaking it down. You want to go through this? You want me to? You can.
So speaking of the details or the juice, as Eric said, so as you can see, the proposed mix of affordability levels for the affordable housing components of the 3 buildings. So building A and B, the affordable units, those would count towards the mandatory inclusionary housing units. And that would be MIH option 1. And as you can see, there are units at 40, 80, and 100% of area median income in A and B. The remaining units, so the remaining 70 plus units in each of those buildings would be market rate. Sure. Yeah, so in buildings A and B, which are the mixed income buildings, you see that for instance, there's 22 units proposed in building A, there's 18 units in building B. Those are the affordable units that would count towards mandatory inclusionary housing, or MIH option 1. And you can see that the proposed AMI levels in the buildings are at 40% of AMI, 80% of AMI, and 100% of AMI. Building C would be the 100% affordable building. And 43 of the units, it's a 44 unit building, 1 unit would be a supers unit, but 43 of the units in building C, which be on 28th Street, just about 100 feet in from 4th Avenue, 100% of those 43 units would be affordable, and they would be at 30% of AMI, 50% of AMI, and a few units at 80% of AMI. And if you're not familiar with area median income, I would really recommend, you can Google it right now. Just Google HPD AMI, okay? And you're going to come up with the 2025 AMI levels that just came out. Those are published annually by HUD, and they usually come out in like February or March.
Just help clarify for folks that what MIH is?
Sure. So mandatory inclusionary housing is a citywide text amendment that happened in 2016 that basically, in order to, if you change the use or the density of a property, so in this case, going from manufacturing use to residential use, and that is more than 10 units or a certain number of square footage, then you trigger a rule that exists in the city of New York to provide mandatory inclusionary housing. So at anywhere from 20 to 30%, depending on the MIH option that is mapped and chosen by the developer, mapped as part of the the discretionary process and then chosen by the developer, has to be provided as affordable housing, and it's permanently affordable. And the beautiful thing about MIH is that it does not rely on taxpayer subsidy in order to get built, right? Building C would, okay, it would tap into subsidy housing, affordable housing subsidy dollars to get built. 100% affordable housing projects do not get built without subsidy. But mixed income projects do get built without direct subsidy. And right now, for instance, the pipeline for affordable housing is about 4 or 5 years for a 100% affordable project. But a mixed income project can move forward much more quickly because they're not relying on, low interest loans, Section 8, those kinds of things. So moving on, that's slide 9. Moving on to slide 10, this is just another way, honestly, of looking at that same information and using today's area median income information, what that looks like, how AMI toggles, if you will, between different household sizes, right? So 100% of AMI in New York City, and AMI for New York also includes some counties up in Westchester, for 3 persons, for a family of 3 is $145,800, which is obviously a hell of a lot of money for a lot of people. And when you basically modify that or prorate that when the household size changes. Thank you very much, Eric. When the household size changes, below 3 or above 3. And you can see that the AMI, so basically whenever you hear that term AMI, so it is literally 30% of $145,800 for a family of 3, or 40% of $145,800 for a family of 3. That's the, that is what that means in the parlance of, affordable housing finance, essentially. But overall, you can see that between the 3 buildings, buildings A, B, and C, there would be 226 units. And across the 3 buildings, the mixed income A and B building and the 100% affordable building, building C, the proposal is for a total of 83 permanently affordable units, right? Because the 100% affordable building would be permanently affordable. The 2 buildings would have mandatory inclusionary housing units. Those units are permanently affordable, which has an overall affordability of 37%, which is 12% more than what's required under current law, under current zoning. So that's a little background there. Eric already mentioned, moving on to the next slide, already mentioned a couple different precedents, if you will, and I want, Fifth Avenue Committee has been involved in them, and so I'm happy to speak to that. So Era Linen, as you know, requires that 100 of the 250 units that will be built there, that was recently approved as part of the rezoning, that they be affordable, and that they be affordable at an average of 60% of area median income, and that the developer, the language is try to have 10% of the units at 30% of area median income. Now, as Eric said, as much as people want to use that project as a precedent for every other project that happens, it is unique. It is unique in that the family that owned that property, that it's been in that family for a very, very long time, which means that the land value for them, it's one thing to buy a property today. It's another thing to buy a property 70 years ago in Windsor Terrace or Kensington. So it's, these are very, very different times. But obviously, A lot was achieved there in terms of the commitment, and Fifth Avenue Committee was happy to be involved in the community benefits agreement that memorialized this commitment. And then the totem project that Eric spoke about, Fifth Avenue Committee also helped negotiate that community benefits agreement, and this board was very involved in that process as well, where in that case, it's MIH option one, and it was very similar. It was an M11 that went to an R8A on Fourth Avenue, and 25% of the units under mandatory inclusionary housing option one are permanently affordable. The big commitment there is the depth of affordability. So totem, the average AMI there is 48% of area median income, which is very significant. And we hope to have good news soon about when the lottery will open for that project. So as you can see, the proposal here for this project, the affordability, each project is different. It has its own site conditions, the different, obviously Totem was a few years ago, Errol Lynn was more recent. But as you can see, the whole goal here is to try to address the affordability needs and crisis that exists in the local community. I think I'm going back to you now, Eric. Sorry. Thank you for the.
Thanks for sticking with us. We know we're giving you guys a boatload of information, but we hope we're answering as many questions as we possibly can. If you can go, you're at the project overview slide. I think this starts to give you some pictures, but I think they're really good. If I could ask you to skip ahead, give everybody a little bit of a break with their brain, is what page is? Yeah. If you can go to page that tells the stories, page 19. I don't know what page you're on now, but if you go to page 19 in the lower right there, that page. This lays it all out for you in a picture, in a one-pager. It's got everything basically we just said, just in one spot. So you don't have to flip all the way over. The top left lays out the site. So you can see the buildings we're talking about. Building A is at the corner of 4th Avenue. That's proposed to be 13 stories. Building B runs along 27th Street. And then Building C, which is the 5th Avenue Committee, runs along 28th Street in the lower right. You could see, we give a description of the development, the number of units, the number of affordable units, the square footages. And then at the bottom, we break down for you what's going on with the affordability in each development site. So you could see that Building A has 98 units, 76 market, 22 affordable. You could see what the average AMI is, and you could see the percentage. Same thing for Building B, 67 units, 18 of them, 18 will be affordable, 85 total, and Building C, 43, all fully affordable. That essentially wraps up what we're doing now. I'm just going to bring up a couple small notes before I open up to questions. I've heard some comments about, there's some questions that were presented to us ahead of time. Would we change any of the commercial for more housing? I didn't go through the commercial with you too much, but all we have in commercial is Building A on the ground floor. It's about 3,000 square feet on the corner. That's the only commercial within the entire development. So there's not much in the way of commercial. It's 3,000 square feet. The idea was to put, a card shop, a shoe shine shop, a small deli, I don't know, a hair salon, a local service-oriented business is what we were thinking. It's neighborhood serving retail is what was thinking is going to go in there. Hardware store, we're open to ideas, and we're also willing to restrict uses. We don't need to have a cannabis dispensary. We don't need to have a bar. We don't need to have food. It's what you would want to see within the space. As far as the space that was being offered for opportunities for better tomorrow, originally, buildings A and B both have cellar spaces within them. It's about 10,000 square feet of cellar space that's available at the cellar level in A and B, maybe a little bit less. That was the space that we were talking to OBT about them taking. They said it's not big enough for them. Plus, they don't really want to be at the basement level. They wanted to have some windows. They have classrooms and they have a lot of programs. Yeah. So they had a couple different requirements we just couldn't meet. So that space is still available. We're open to discussions with who could go in there. If you would want to see somebody in there, we're open to ideas to create partnerships with. It wasn't being offered to them rent free, but it was definitely being offered to them at a quote unquote sweetheart rate or, insider's deal or whatever you want to say, some way to give them the benefit of us getting the approval and then the benefit of being where they need to be. And we're more than willing to continue that spirit of that with another organization. Parking, there's not much. There's 10 parking spaces in the building. It's in building B. There is no required parking, number one. Number two, we're on top of a subway. You want to build parking, we got to spend boatloads of money, and it's just not really feasible. So the city of Yes doesn't require the parking, primarily, as you know. Most people aren't happy with it in the city. I know that. I saw, most people want parking. I know that. But it is some. So, but that's why we're not providing any for the parking. Both the subway, it's not required, and we really don't have the money to create that and create the affordable housing. So that's our proposal. I mean, that's the whole essence of it. We appreciate you guys giving us the time. Did I miss something? Oh, the view corridor. Yeah, maybe we could skip ahead. Page 25. We wanted to make sure, like I said, we've been. Page 18. 18, I see one. Okay, so we're not interrupting any view corridors. The Statue of Minerva and the sight line is being maintained. We're not even anywhere near it. And the view corridors, towards Lower Manhattan are still the same, and that's not being disrupted at all. So, thank you. Thank you for having us.
So we're gonna, we really appreciate everybody being here tonight. So we're going to get to everyone who has a comment or a question. First, we're going just to prioritize questions from board members, and then, we'll get to folks. And if you're tuning in virtually, just raise your hand. So we don't, so we know that you have a question. Diana, did you?
I have lots, but you should go first and then we can go.
I
know you have lots also. You're usually writing.
Okay, so I just have some questions. Can you just clarify the breakdown of the square footage per unit? So what the proposed square footage would look like for a studio, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom?
We don't have, I have it here for you on the plans. Do we have it in breaking? The plans break it down, so you can see, I'm just flipping through. So a 2-bedroom I'm looking at here is about 838 square feet. On 1 bedroom is 659 square feet. And then if I could find a studio in one of the
Please
buildings.
speak into the mic.
Sure, sorry about that. So 1 bedroom is about 600 square feet. A 2-bedroom is, I'm seeing about 900, 960. I'm looking for a studio. A 3-bedroom is 1,172 square feet, and a studio is 401 square feet. And as far as the unit distribution goes, we tried to create a family-oriented unit distribution. You'll see there are ample number of 2 and 3 bedrooms in addition to studios. No, the affordable, we could talk about the affordable 3 bedrooms because obviously the bigger the affordable unit is, the less affordable units there are. So it's.
Can we just, can you ask your person to pull up the slide so we're all on the same page?
Go to page 33 has.
Sorry, Jeremy. Yeah, just for folks who are on the line and in the room, we're just referring to the unit breakdown. So we had noticed that there are quite a number of market rate apartments that are 3-bedroom, but there are 0 in each of the 3 buildings at 3-bedroom for affordable.
Yeah, part of it is the building C configuration versus building A and B. Like they're really like, building C is very much a square, whereas building A and B is a little more of a rectangle. And so that's part of it. The other piece, honestly, and this is part of like where we're at, and I totally hear you in trying to have more family-sized bedrooms, and that's certainly something we can take back. There is a certain like minimum number of units of affordable housing in order to get financing. And we're pretty much at the lowest threshold possible in order to, even get financing. So if we increase the number of family units, that'll decrease the number of units overall, and then it becomes very difficult to finance the project.
So my second question was, can you just clarify, the MIH option that was selected?
One.
And would the developer consider, a different option to produce deeper affordability?
The option 3 at 20% at 40% of AMI. I mean, that's something to think about. And I understand again why people are asking it about that. You know, if you go back to originally, and I'm speaking now as Michelle, affordable housing advocate, okay? You go back to the original analysis that was done by Bay Area Economics in order to create the various MIH options. One of the reasons why originally MIH option 3 could only be paired with MIH options 1 or 2, I know it changed as a result of City of Yes, was because that option actually is the richest for the developer. You know, although they have depth of affordability, that loss of 5% in terms of going from 25% of the units being permanently affordable versus 20% permanently affordable is a bit of a gift to the developer, honestly. So you should think about that because all MIH options already have the 10%, right? They already have the 10% requirement. And because we're bringing in building C, there's going to be units that are going to be at 30% of AMI. So I think we would get to what the community, I think, is trying to get to in other ways.
So that leads to my the next question. Does this proposal take into account any the changes that have come forth through City of Yes?
Yeah.
And can you talk a little bit more about your partnership with Watermark and if you are involved in any other projects?
No, we don't have any other projects with Watermark. This would be the first time that we're partnering. And, you know, I think we were approached to partner on this project, and I think it's because of Fifth Avenue Committee's track record of building affordable housing in Community Board 7 and really working to try to meet the needs for affordable housing that the Community Board has.
And Fifth Avenue Committee would be leasing directly from the diocese or from Watermark?
No, we anticipate direct leasing from Watermark. But really, it's Watermark is the one that's having the relationship with the diocese.
And then you had also mentioned in Building C that there would be a super. Can you talk a little bit about how that person would?
They would live there. They would have experience
Sorry.
managing affordable housing.
Sorry, that's not my question. How they would be, you know, how someone would attain that job. Could they be from the neighborhood? What would be
Oh, sure,
the
absolutely.
outreach like?
I mean, you know, Fifth Avenue Committee has over 100 employees. And with our affiliates, we have over 150 employees. So we hire from the community all the time.
And then I just, this is more of a comment that I wanted to make. So Watermark Capital is also involved with a separate project in the neighborhood on 62nd Street and 8th Avenue. That's completely as of right. That's producing zero affordability. So just wanted to mention that here now.
As of right versus discretionary. This is why we're here. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, first of all, thank you for coming here. Thank you for coming here earlier in the process instead of waiting until certification. We appreciate that. I want to know what is your timeline for certification and for officially submitting all of the documents you need to do, given that they now have to incorporate City of Yes.
We're guesstimating we'll be certified sometime in the fall,
Okay.
into late fall. Most, 3/4 of the documents have been submitted already. We're going back and forth with city planning on the details of everything, but we got to a comfortable level with city planning, with the zoning districts and the application, and that's why when we came to you.
Great. Do you mind introducing your colleagues who are here tonight?
Well, Natalia is there, and she's the project architect,
Hello?
and Jake is in the back. He's the guy that runs the screen and helps with that. And you got Asher right here, who's Asher is working as a strategist with us, and Asher's business partner, who I just met tonight, and I forgot your name. There you go, Gregory Lewis. He's obviously a legend.
It's good to see you, Asher. How are you? Good. So Both of you mentioned the fact that landlords' costs are going up. And I had a conversation with my building owner, my landlord recently, and he complained about the cost of insurance. But this is my frustration. The real estate industry is incredibly politically powerful and incredibly well organized. So instead of making hardworking people foot all the bills for everything, maybe you take tasks to the insurance industry and to the other industries that are price gouging and use that power for that to help keep New York City affordable. I'm just going to put that out there. That's a blanket thing about the industry in general and not about any specific developer.
Oh, I love the way that you're speaking. Unfortunately, it's not the city of 20 years ago where Rebney and the real estate conglomerates controlled things and had as much influence. If you're paying attention to the rent stabilized discussion we were just having a moment ago, tens of thousands of units are now warehoused because people can't afford to operate the units. So obviously they don't have as much control as they once used to have. So I think it's a case where everybody's getting boxed out together, but your point is well taken, and something's got to give. It's across the board, and it's not just for apartment owners, it's for homeowners. Homeowners are in the same boat. I mean, everybody's in the same position.
Okay, let's see here. You have, what is it, 3,800 square feet of ground floor commercial space and then an additional amount in the basement. Did you talk with Opportunities for a Better Tomorrow of using that above that first floor space at all?
Yes, we spoke to them about utilizing every square inch within the building. The problem for them simply is that they need to be an open floor plate with easily accessible rooms for people to go. Their program, is interactive. So the space up on the first floor, like we just met with them last week. He said, yeah, we maybe put some administrative people on the first floor, or a waiting room on the first floor, but it doesn't give the classroom space that they need. They need a room like this, not in this era, but in this style with windows, to teach their classes in, and it didn't do it for them.
Okay, and have you been in communication with any other organizations?
Oh, that's all just fell apart last week. We've been working with each other and talking for 8 or 9 months. We've really been trying to find us. Last week, they came back to us and said it's just not.
So it sounds like you have a lot of basement space that potentially wouldn't be utilized.
Little under 10,000 square feet of cellar space.
Could any of that be residential parking? Not an A?
No, it doesn't really work out that well for parking because of the way that the building is laid out, where the mechanicals are and the stairways are and the service areas are. You need a lot of circulation. If you look at building B, for example, if I don't know whoever's controlling the screen, it's a very narrow building. It's not very wide. So the floor plates just doesn't work very well for parking. We got as much parking out of it as we possibly could. Yeah, sure.
I mean, because you guys were obvious active participants in the City of Yes discussion, you know that especially subgrade parking, the cost of every subgrade parking is well over $100,000 for construction.
Okay. I'm a little curious about the lease terms with the diocese. How long is the lease for?
I'm not made privy to any of that information. I don't have the business dealings with the diocese. I wasn't involved with that, nor do I think that's a public document. I can find out information, how long they have it for. I'd assume they have a substantial amount of time. I've never actually asked Watermark how. Have they ever told you how long? It's a 99-year lease?
Yeah, well, I mean, we're talking about guaranteeing permanently affordable housing, and a lease is not a permanently existing state of affairs.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. We could run into the same problem that they just ran into in the co-ops in Queens. I don't know if you followed what was going on in Queens, but it's a similar issue. The leases were expiring and 100 years came due.
Yep.
But past 100 years right now, so thank you very much for bringing that up. We'll talk about that a little bit.
It's a high point. Maybe it'll be a highly in demand waterfront property with views of the sea. Oh, God. Okay. So obviously you had to avoid doing a spot rezoning, so this does include adjacent sites. Can you walk us through a little bit? What are the other sites that would be rezoned and what they are now and what they would be allowed to be?
Yeah, if somebody, whoever's controlling the screen, there should be some streetscape pictures.
Two residential buildings and
Yeah, the sort of. Hope we have some pictures. Now that you bring it up, I realize we might not have any pictures of. No, we had everything else and then we took that out. So let's see. Oh, here it is. Yeah, slide 22 is the best we got. That does the trick. Slide page 22 of the slide. And you can see in the right-hand side is the out parcels, which are basically improved upon with what I would say customary and typical developments along Fourth Avenue in the M1, 1D districts.
Okay, so we're looking at, so building A would be this one on the corner of 27th, right? And that'd be the 13-story building? And that's all one building there, or is this two buildings? That's one, okay. How tall are the houses that are adjacent on 27th Street? 3 stories? Okay. So you're gonna have 13 stories next to 3 stories. Does this account for setbacks or any kind of thing along those lines, or are we talking about a straight up wall going up 13 stories?
That's back a little bit. So I'm looking at the architect to give me a little cue, but sets back a little bit, but it's basically going up 13 stories next to the homes.
Okay, and there's no way to reduce that height by, say, getting rid of setbacks or any other means?
We can look at it to see. Yes, please feel free to speak. Yeah, come on and speak to the mic if you want.
Hi, the 13-story building is only on the corner,
Okay.
and next to the building, we have an 11-story building, so we do have a drop.
So where the church is now would be 11? Okay, and so is there any way to get that down by removing setbacks or any other architectural means?
Look into it.
Yeah, we'd appreciate that. Yeah, obviously we want to meet our needs for affordable housing, but we want to do so in a way that minimally impacts the neighboring community. We have a number of neighbors with the project here tonight, and I'm sure they appreciate you taking them into consideration. Have you communicated at all with the property owners or tenants and any of the sites that would be rezoned?
This is our first outreach tonight.
Okay. Do you have any plans to do so?
Yes, we're hoping to meet people tonight and then start this conversation.
All right, so you guys heard now. Say hi to them afterwards and make new friends or don't, whichever you want to do. I wanted to revisit. Sorry, I'm a little disorganized at the moment.
All right, we've been preparing for this for a while. You just got it.
Okay. I wanted to bring up again this issue of 3 bedrooms. I think that not having a single affordable 3-bedroom is a huge mistake. I think we don't need affordable studios because people who would want affordable studios could probably live with roommates instead, and 3 bedrooms are incredibly in high demand for both families and for roommate scenarios, and anything that could be done to kind of push those numbers upward, I think would really be for the community's benefit. And then I wanted to ask you about the plan for 10 commercial parking spaces. What is the thought behind that?
Well, it's the parking for just 10 cars, doesn't have to be commercial.
Oh, okay. I was understanding it was commercial. Is that going to be made available to,
Made available to, we don't know who, but residents will be.
like possibly residents of the building? Okay. Okay, great. Was that a change? Because,
No, maybe there was a typo in something. but,
okay.
Never meant to be commercial.
Okay. I'm curious about this gift to FAC. What does that mean exactly? What is Fifth Avenue Committee receiving? What is Fifth Avenue Committee paying for itself using government sponsorship, et cetera?
What we're receiving is the opportunity to build 100% affordable housing on a parcel of land that we wouldn't have been able to build 100%.
But you're not paying a cent for the land.
We're either going to pay an appraised value or a lease amount.
Okay.
Either one. That's the part that's getting negotiated.
Okay. Keep us posted.
Yes.
And I think those are all of my questions for now. Yeah. Whoa.
Yes. Hi, I'm Erin. I will be abstaining from a vote, heads up, but I do have some questions. Yes, I am an architect and the firm that I work for has done a zoning study on Building C. Yeah,
Thank you for the help.
that was, yeah, it's not for certain, but I mean, yeah, so I did have some questions,
Sure, go right ahead.
even from my study. Um,
That happens.
yeah. So you have multiple properties, property 66, which is the square property, property 14, which is more L-shaped. And then you have the two kind of more standardized properties of property 5, which is on the corner. And
Mind sharing what page you're on?
page 30. I fully understand that this is going to be like a change of zoning and grouping of properties. I guess my question is, why did you group the properties in this way so that there would be 3 buildings? I am curious about this kind of the cutoff of the little L shape. And is that like affording like higher FAR for building B versus building C?
Question, the properties that are on the map that you're referring to, those, the ones that are mauve or pink or peach, whatever.
Yes,
Those are the properties we control.
yes. What I'm saying is that you're joining them, right? So that you're joining them to create building C?
One zoning lot, it'll all be
Yeah.
one zoning lot, yeah.
Okay, and then you're joining them to create building B?
Correct, on that, we're laying out buildings A, B, and C.
Yes, correct. So you're joining it as one large lot, and then you're allocating it per square footage
Correct.
of those 3 buildings.
Correct, amongst all 3.
So how is it that you calculated the 13 stories versus the 11 versus the 7?
Yeah,
And do you still have the ability to adjust that?
yeah, everything is, yeah, it's all just on
Okay.
paper, everything's just ink and paper. The way it was designed and what the architects were trying to do, what we were all trying to do, was to put the massing on the avenue, and then to step down as you got to the side streets to address the discussions we were just having about being adjacent to other properties. So particularly the Fifth Avenue Committee Building was one that we didn't feel was deserving of as much bulk as the others, because of its location and its context. Whereas the other side on 27th Street, it's already got the church over there. It's already got the existing facilities. It's not as much of an existing residential character on that end of the block. So the design thought was to put more density over there on that side.
Okay,
Not done. That's why we're here. This is
okay.
talked about.
So my next question is that, in all of the plans, you're showing an open garden space. And obviously, with building A, it doesn't go as a full two-property line. So you end up having this large garden space behind all 3 buildings. Is that being divided? Is that being
Yeah,
like limited to one building
But
that
if-
is paying full price for
but
their?
whoever's controlling the
versus-
screen, go to page 1. The very first page shows it really clearly. And if you guys are right on the cover of what you guys all have here. So what's being referred to is, you can see in the middle of the donut, there's an open garden area. We haven't given it much discussion yet of what exactly we're going to do with it.
Okay,
I'd imagine Building C is going to have its own, and that will be unto itself and a private right, as a part of yours, because he'll be required as a part of your program probably and your funding sources. And then at the mid-block section, the natural dividing line here, the remainder of it will be for buildings A and B that they'll probably share.
Okay. This is that's a great amenity to have. And so I was really wanting to advocate, even though I can't vote, I would like to advocate that it be like equitable, not just for the full price units, but also for,
Oh, yeah, no, it's planned to be, as Michelle just said, if you want to say more on it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say that MIH also requires that all the amenities in a mixed income building are accessible to the affordable units as well. So, I mean, I totally agree with, the value statement that you're sharing, right? Which is about access and equity and fairness.
thank you. My next question is, had you considered building C, especially because it is 100% affordability? Had you considered allocating any portion of that for a community facility or square footage?
Started looking at it, and we started looking at it also because of the conversation that was happening with OBT. And so we were also participating in that conversation to see what portion could be allocated. I think part of the challenge is, so we also have basement space that, for instance, could become community facility space. If we have community facility space above ground, where it's kind of like you take from the residential at a certain point, which is part of the challenge.
And my last question is that you mentioned it's the lowest number of, right.
Financial feasibility for the affordable, yeah.
Is there any way of reallocating square footage from the other buildings to raise that number so that you're not the lowest? Because you are dividing this over 3 buildings. So it's not just building C, it's building A, B, and C, and there is some level setting that can happen.
Could have used your help for the last 10 months. This has been the whole thing we've been doing for the last 10 months, is going back and forth on where the stress point is of where the developer could afford to give and what FAC needs to make it work. And I'll let Michelle pick up after I say it, but we're stressed to the point. I said it at the beginning, we really tried hard to come to you with our best hard work. We didn't just come willy-nilly. So we can't take the floor area from the other units, other buildings, and assign it to Michelle, because then that puts those buildings underwater. So we tried to find the balance that lets the developer do what they got to do and lets Michelle do what she has to do, and let them both do it successfully. And I think, Michelle, you maybe could add more words to echo that.
Yeah, I mean, these are always trade-offs about affordability and feasibility for the overall project. That's basically what's going on. I mean, I would love to see building C to be bigger. I would love to see family size units. I hear it, and we'll be happy to go back and see if we left anything on the table, obviously. But in the end, it has to be able to be feasibly be built on all sides, like both the A and B side and the C side. And I'll just say, having just completed 2 recent construction projects along 4th Avenue, like construction along a subway is, construction in New York City is expensive. Construction along a subway is even more expensive.
Thank you. That was all.
I have more questions, actually. Yes, you know me. So this is currently zoned M1, which means it's quite likely a brownfield. We have a neighbor here today who lives across the street who tested his backyard for heavy metals, and the test came back positive. So we're looking at the possibility that there's some very old pollutants below all of this. What plans do you have to kind of address what's happening here and to ensure that any remediation doesn't affect the neighboring residents at all?
Property is going to be assigned, I'm sorry, whoever found that, it's probably a shock. It's like the groundwater in Long Island. The property is going to have an E designation put on it. Has one now. What that's going to, and it will come out of ULURP with an E designation. So what that means is that before a developer can go to the Department of Building and pull work permits, they have to satisfy the E designation, which is a requirement that says that they have to provide testing, submit it to DEP, and get a sign off from DEP that there are no heavy metals or anything else that somebody may uncover. And that will be identified through testing, and there'll be the drilling done, the borings will be taken to a lab, the lab will be tested, DEP will opine on it, and Department of Buildings will not be able to issue a permit until DEP says that the testing has been done, and if there's been a problem, it's been addressed. So
I just want to clarify, it's DEP and not DEC. Interesting. Okay. And then also in Sunset Park, because of the slope, we have a lot of issues with flooding. So what plans do you plan on taking to mitigate the fact that you're adding a lot of bulk and a lot of people to this site?
So a few years ago, the city council passed the uniform stormwater rule, which required that all new construction buildings actually have detention tanks in them, right? And also that either you have a green roof or solar on all new construction. So those are, very, very important things to help control stormwater. And certainly a surface parking lot and buildings that were built more than 50 years ago, I can tell you, do not have those features right now. So, I'm sure. And as the other piece of this, of course, is, the subway acts as its own dam, right? And so that water backs up there too. So obviously, the buildings are actually going to be helping to increase the resiliency in the area because they're going to have these detention tanks. And we'll obviously look at green roofs as well.
And to clarify, the detention tanks are just for what goes into the gutters? It's like a rain barrel, but bigger?
Interior to the building.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And so, yeah, I'd like to keep posted about whether there's going to be green roofs or solar panels or any other kind of mitigation.
Do them both.
Yes, and they're great. Yeah. Grow some shade plants and some full sun plants. And then with the open space, just based on the size of these buildings, it looks like it's not going to get a lot of direct sunlight. So do you have any thoughts about what's going to happen there in terms of potentially using that to mitigate runoff?
Natalia is our project architect is here, and she's incredibly astute to these issues. So yeah, the area, what you mentioned before, the detention tank is a rainwater barrel. It's underground. So it'll gather all the water and then it'll be dispersed during slow periods. So after the storms pass. As far as the rear yard goes, the rear yard will have drainage built into it that will be connected to the detention tanks. So again, anything that gathers back there, everything feeds into, so the gutter system, there'll be bioswales in the streets, so the trees that are planted, and this is city requirement. This is not even.
Can you clarify where the bioswales will be? Can you clarify where the
Tree pits.
Yeah. So on 4th Avenue, on 27th, on 28th?
All around, any
All
tree
around.
pit.
Okay.
So it's a requirement of New York City law now when you put a tree pit in. So that'll act to gather the rainwater. So basically, anything that could be done to gather rainwater will be done. You'll still flood. It'll probably still be a waterfront property in 100 years, but maybe we'll slow it down a little bit.
All right, I finally am done. My apologies to everyone. I guess Julio first.
There we go. Thank you. Before I ask my questions, just to disclose, I am a board member of the Fifth Avenue Committee. So just noting that. So you mentioned that Watermark is going to be entering into a lease with the diocese. Has that lease been signed? Okay, thank you. My next question, I know we talked about I know we talked about that OBT unfortunately can't work with just a basement space because of some funding concerns. But this
By the
community.
way, just so you know, it was programming concerns, not funding.
Yeah, programming concerns. Sorry. This community is at a real deficit of public space and community space. Prime example is we have very large empty room next door to us that was the library before they moved to the new location, and now is sitting empty, being controlled by the NYPD. So what is there any I know this was mentioned earlier, but is there any wiggle room in terms of increasing first floor space with the cellar for a community nonprofit so that they can, use that space for their operations, but also for the community to have access to, more space for programming?
Falls into the same problem, there's only so many ways that you could cut the pie up here. The space at grade is viable for residential usage. And in order to make the numbers work for the affordability, every square inch, the more feet we get, the more affordable we could provide, the more the numbers work out. So I'm not going to say, no, we can't take that space, but OBT asked for the first floor space and we just couldn't do it. We couldn't take the entire first floor and give it for a space that's not going to earn the revenue that's needed to support the program and the rest of the building. Now, what I thought you were going to say, though, or I was hoping you were going to say, is maybe there's a room for an annex for the library in the cellar space. Maybe there's some kind of computer thing that they've got going on where they don't need windows in the room, or maybe there's some programming, so I don't know, but we're open to ideas to use that space for something productive and that the community wants. Encroaching into the first floor, it's the whole reason why we don't even have commercial on the first floor, for that very reason. It's just a small little 3,000 square foot space. All the first floors, there's first floor, building B's first floor is all residential.
I mean, I'll just say this, Julio, that, I mean, we're going to also look at the basement space in building C and what could be done with that space. And so, I mean, if Fifth Avenue Committee has programming in there, there's obviously something we would make available to the community.
Yeah, thank you. And then this was mentioned a little bit earlier, building A is projected to be 13 stories, building B 11 stories, building C 8 stories. Is there any chance that we can reduce the height of building A and B by 1 story and add that to building C so that it would be similar in height, but also increase the number of units increase the number of affordable units?
We can look at it. I'm not overly optimistic because, like I said, we've crunched the numbers back and forth 10 times over to try and give you the most optimal, scenario that we can give you. But we could look at it and see. We've heard the concerns, and we'd like to bring it back. The architect is here, and we're going to study it.
Yeah, and just a comment. I know you mentioned that Watermark has already signed the lease with the diocese. I know the council member has tried to reach out to the diocese prior to this meeting. The diocese has not participated in any discussion. It would have been great if the diocese was present either tonight or in any previous discussion, because I think it would have been good for them to hear that, I recognize that there's a bottom line, a bottom mark that Watermark needs to look at and when they're building, but we could have, I think it would have been great to tell the diocese that, like, reduce probably some of the costs so that we can get more affordable units. And it's unfortunate that the diocese hasn't participated in any discussion.
We appreciate
Especially for a longstanding community partner like St. Rocco's.
sentiment, but I could assure you, they could do what they do what they do. The diocese, we're not representing the diocese, and we don't speak for them, but Watermark is in contact with the diocese, and they will convey what you just said. And we have been in touch with them about the community. We've heard the community's interest to hear from them, and we've been passing the messages along. So it's not going on deaf ears. Hopefully, you'll get some communication in the next few weeks.
Hello?
Want to come up here and use this mic?
Yeah, thank you again for being proactive and engaging with the community. I just want to confirm the R, is it 8A, that does allow up to 14 stories, correct? Okay, so I just want the board to be aware that there's, proposing 13, it could be up to 14. Yeah,
Uh, we'd be happy to, if we come to an agreement on everything, restrict the development through via deed restriction or some other mechanism. We're not here to do a bait and switch, and I've been doing this a long time, and you know it too. And you just said it, you get a 14-story building, you're saying 13, we go, next thing you know, it's a 14-story building up there. That's not our intention.
but the out parcels, non-applicant owned next to that would be eligible to build up to 14 stories, and still only you're getting whatever MIH option and no additional affordable. So that's like a gimme to the future, speculative development. That's, no, but
Oh, the out parcels would also be subject to MIH if they were to
yeah,
redevelop.
subject to MIH, but I'm just saying that is spurring a rezoning where you're just getting
If-
the bare minimum for some future potential.
Pay to deal with you, they would not be necessarily.
Exactly, right. And
Want it to be or not, they'll be speaking, so.
yeah, and my personal preference to the board would be to extend the R7A that's south of their requested R8A to that mid-block. But I'm a fan of, I know there's a tension with how much development and units you can get versus urban design and human scale, and I'm still a fan of that. Similarly, my recommendation on the mid-block, the R7A, would be to be more in line with the R6B mid-block zoning. That is the precedent in the neighborhood. And that R7A, as you know, can allow up to the 11 stories, and currently the Fifth Avenue Committee building is proposed at 7. I also just want to flag that until the developments on our Fourth Avenue are developed, you'll have a huge blank wall facing Fourth Avenue on the rendering side that is not, presented to the community on the southern wall of the development.
Southern wall, yeah.
Yes. And, I think you should consider in the interim any, you're not allowed to have windows or fenestrations there. So any good design treatment until that's developed. And I was just curious because we were chastised about the, from being excluded in the CBA on Arrow Linen, but how is the additional affordability being capped, that whatever's over and above MIH, how is that being captured? Is that CBA, restrict, what is it?
It's a contract between us and Watermark. And we will also, it'll be subject to a regulatory agreement with HPD.
Okay, but what would give the, I don't know, board certainty that that is the outcome?
I mean, I'm happy to send a letter. I'm happy to share, information about our agreement in order to ensure that that building is 100% affordable. We're not here for bait and switch. We're here to build 100% affordable housing.
And then on the zoning district, you have a split zoning lot line with the manufacturing district. So does that, can you extend your zoning to the 25 feet of
Okay,
that?
it's 25 feet, correct.
Okay, and that's an R7A that can basically be extended by, okay. Yeah, and I do appreciate the city's stormwater rules and they're great. I just want to be clear. And I don't know, Fourth Avenue is probably not combined. It's probably separated, but I just want to be clear. Oh, it's combined. So we hear, and I think it's misleading when these developers come in and say, we're fixing all your flooding problems. You're adding, 220 units, fixtures, toilets, and and if the sewers, if they're combined and not upgraded, yes, you're reducing the stormwater, but you're making the sanitary.
Let's be clear, we did say it'll still flood when we're done.
Yes,
We're
and
not-
I really
not trying to
appreciate
say
your
we're-
frankness.
we're saying it.
Yes, but I more Michelle, in your professional capacity, I think it's misleading to say there's no issues being created. And I think that's it. Again, I appreciate it. I went through the Arrow Linen. I used to live on 30th. I don't live in the immediate area, so I'm looking forward to hearing what local neighbors and residents have to say to engage more deeply on the building, on the depth of affordability and building scale. I do support a request to kind of step it down in scale as you go more mid-block. Thank you.
Just to make sure we get to everyone, we did want to switch off between public members, especially folks who live in the vicinity of the project. And so we'll switch off between public members and board members. Is there anyone from the public who lives in the vicinity of the project who would like to? Yes, come on up. Yeah. All right. He's on work, right?
I wouldn't.
Are the mayor of the block, Brian? Let's be real here.
Hi, my name is Brian. I'm part of the 27th Street Block Association. Thank you so much for coming here and presenting and being open to discussion. We appreciate it. If you can go to slide page 22. Just a quick question. Rezoning, the bottom right of the, I don't know what color that is, where it says rezoning, are these buildings that are going to remain going to be rezoned as well?
Yes.
What does that mean for the future? I mean, of those buildings or of the area?
It gives those buildings the opportunity to develop similar to what we're proposing. Now, it also, as a part of the rezoning process, if that's not something people want to see, just to educate everybody so you know what your options are here. If we get to the point where people are liking the development, and if the council person were to be involved in this at some future point, when this gets to the end of the rezoning, the council person has the right to use a scissor on this map and cut the map into whatever fashion the council person deems is appropriate. When we make the application, we're required to make a comprehensive land use application. So if the conversation starts to digress to the point where people say, we don't want to see future development on these lots, there is a mechanism that could be done to adjust that through the process that we're going through right now, where those could be eliminated. The other thing is, as far as those properties go, it's the properties that are on the avenue will be benefiting from the density. They'll get the R8A. The properties in the back will get the R7A. So if people who own those properties did want to develop, and we're here tonight, I don't know who owns what properties here, and I don't know what your interests are, but we are talking about a substantial change in the development rights. So if it was something that people are taking back and maybe they're saying to themselves, oh, there's an opportunity here for the future for me here. We're happy to work with you to address the issue that was just raised a moment ago about uncertain development and build you into the deed restriction of the community benefits agreement or whatever else we're doing so that the developments get tailored that way. So the council person has the right to cut it. You have the right to deny it, the board. The council person has the right to cut it, or people joining in have the right to tweak it. So there's a couple different ways to address it.
That's not my property. But of course I am on the block. I'm further.
To the president, so you can tell them.
Not the president.
I was just kidding. I did not mean to give you.
No, that's okay. You mentioned that, so I did test the soil in my backyard and it does have heavy metals. I have the test results as well when I moved in. I mean, I think most backyards in the area will. I think that's just the reality. Right. Everyone probably threw coal dust and all kinds of things.
I didn't know that.
On 17th Street.
It's just the question is, what will you do if and when you do find heavy metals and other kinds of contaminants?
Same thing that I described a moment ago, and this is the process throughout the city of New York, is that when you go through a rezoning and it's a manufacturing piece, automatically the city requires you to have an E designation on it. Automatically, they don't take any chances. And that mandates that the developer or whoever's going to build, any builder, goes to the department. It's okay. Puts borings in the ground, pulls like you just did, does exactly what you just did, finds out what's in there and submits those results to the city and then cleans it up.
Meaning like we're
Take it out. Yeah, they take it out.
I imagine that there's many of restrictions, but what about making the building on 18th on 4th Avenue 18 stories and farther down 6 stories?
Oh, you're preaching to the choir. I wish you guys were with us for the last year.
Buildings are no more than 3 stories on the block. So like, I get it. We need enough FAR for all kinds of reasons. But I mean, in order to adhere to any kind of architecture of the block, it'd be great.
Very legitimate point, and so you know we're on the same page as you. We started the conversation with the planners within the city about going for a higher density on the avenue. There was a lot of concern over the higher density on the avenues. So we went back and forth. It's not to say that they're right or you're right or we're right. It's just that we're all in tune with what your concern is. And we assure you we will work with the concerns that were just made to try to find the balance to get to where people are happy.
Zoning proposed is the 14 stories. So that's the maximum that would be allowed.
Got that as well. Thank you so much.
Did start asking for an R9 originally. Yeah, we want it to be higher.
Jeremy?
Um, so I'd first like to state, I think one of the most important numbers that we should be looking at is actually the AMI of Sunset Park itself, which is $44,000. So when you look at these numbers of 37% affordability, the 100% AMI and the 80% AMI actually represent essentially higher than market rate. So when we're talking about, we should actually exclude and never consider 80% or 100% AMI in a working class neighborhood like Sunset Park as affordable. That is not affordable. These rents are $1,500 more. The 2-bedroom is hundreds of dollars more than my 3-bedroom is. These 100% AMI at $4,000 or $3,500 does not work. And so that's just juicing up these numbers. That so affordable housing is the 50, the 40, and the 30. So what does that really include? That entails basically it's only 23, 22%. Or, essentially if you take away those 31 units, it's essentially 51 units. And so we have to go back to the fact that this was stated that this is different from Arrow Linen's rezoning. The question is, St. Rocco's has owned this property for over 100 years. This is actually better situation for the diocese that has been a nonprofit sitting on this land for several years. They clearly seem to, they haven't been using this property for 5 years now. And then it seems like all of a sudden we are supposed to think that they are so incredibly hard up that they need a juiced up package like this with, 2 market rate buildings. And so that's why I'm looking at this and thinking, yeah, of course we could do one of the larger buildings as fully affordable. So my question is to Watermark is please explain your financials of the Archdiocese. What are they leasing this to? What are your numbers around profitability? We heard numbers from some people that the leasing was $120,000 per month for these buildings. That seems actually very, very low. I'm curious then, so what are the actual numbers for cost for building per apartment? What will Watermark make per year? And especially when we're looking at a property that essentially should be, when we've built 100% affordable housing, it's been on public land or church land. This is church land. We should be expecting way more than 37%, which is a false number, but really ends up being 22% for Sunset Park. So I think this is incredibly important that we actually drill down on this and not expect this to be the best offer, because this is clearly not the best offer. And that we've seen that every time that we've pushed, whether it's the Sunset Park Library or whether it's the senior center, we've gotten 100% affordable housing. And so my question is also on top of the financials is we're hearing now that you've been engaging with OBT for 8 or 9 months. This comes as a full package deal already. This actually should have come to us way before then. And I think this is coming way too late because we're already seeing the inclusion of Fifth Avenue Committee, which 2 months ago, we had no idea that this was happening. But this conversation apparently has been going on for several months. I had no idea that, a nonprofit like OBT was already engaged. You said 9 months ago. So to me, this should have come to us 9 months ago with these sort of conversations about this type of development, the true affordability that we want to see. But I think we really have to disregard that 80 AMI and 100% AMI is not acceptable affordable housing for Sunset Park.
All right, we'll take another question from a community member.
Can I just comment for quick? There's a great data source that everybody can look at about AMI level by community board, and I'm sure folks are aware of this. So, some folks might be aware of this, but, NYU Furman Center does a neighborhood data report by community board that breaks down rental, what the rents are in every area, what the incomes are in every area, and how that changes over time. And then you can basically crosswalk that over to the AMI levels. I mean, AMI, median income is not average. It literally is that half the people are above it in the community and half the people are below it in the community.
Provide that information for us. You had a question? And Jeremy, just so folks on the line can hear, Jeremy is saying it's 44,000 for Sunset Park, the AMI. You had a question? Yeah. Okay, you just have to come up. So that-
Hi, my name's Jonathan Steinke. I will soon be living by a 11-floor wall, right? Just think about that, right? Also, when you guys plan this stuff, you're just thinking about your building. There's a new building just down the way here, and there's another big building on 26th Street. We're not just talking about like hundreds of cars. We're talking about 500 extra cars moving into our neighborhood. And we have a Kentucky Fried Chicken that's waiting to be made into a building. We have a building next to that that's going to be made into a building. I mean, there is so much profitability right in that area. Like at some point, someone's going to have to build a parking lot. Just to let you know, I understand you're only concerned with your building. Okay, 2 buildings. Is it because the one is zoned off 4th Avenue that the second building is considered a different building?
It's being built as, developed as a separate building. It could be developed together.
Are they going to be built at the same time?
Yes.
Is the building C going to be built?
Building C is going to operate its own, a different schedule because
Talking about not only a year of construction, then on top of we have another year of construction. That's not nice. You're not being good neighbors to us. That means I'm going to have to live in a construction site for over 2.5 or 3 years. That just doesn't seem fair, right? It's just overwhelming, right? You got to understand that this is overwhelming. And also like,
and so can I ask you which property is yours? You mind if I ask? Okay. You're in the rezoning area itself or you're just outside? Okay.
once you rezone that, that's going to be huge buildings too. Those places aren't going to stay like that. I mean, when you start changing zoning in areas, it's catastrophic. Like we're not talking about a working class neighborhood anymore if there are all these buildings going up, right? It's just not. You're changing the whole landscape of what's going to happen in this neighborhood. Yeah, it's just, you know, it's like, I just wish there was a little more forethought in what's going on. And I understand you're only concerned with your buildings, right? But then you got to think about like, I'm going to be living next to an 11-story wall. And the fact that one side of your building doesn't have windows, you know for a fact someone's going to build next to that. You just know. The fact that this thing right here is built like this, you know that someone's going to build here so that these people can still have their windows in the back. You know that. Thank you.
Have a committee member with a question? Oh, Damien.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Hey y'all, I'm back. Back again. Yeah, so to go back to, so a couple things, couple questions. To just basically go back to off of what Jeremy said about the rents in this neighborhood. I know you, Michelle, said that the NYU Furman Center has released that study, and if you actually go on the website, it actually says that from 2006, rents were average from 1,400, and now in 2023 went to 1,900. And if some rents in this neighborhood are still at 1,900, we still have a couple of buildings, a couple units in this apartments that are still way above 1,900. So in reality, it's not really building affordable apartments when a lot of these apartments working class people can't afford. And then, so that was just like my little comment. So my question is, when you look at the, well, for the first page, you have the building plan with an open garden. Is there any plans that you guys could have that open garden to the public? Because usually what a lot of developers like to do is We've seen with Arrow Linden. Arrow Linden has a backyard, a nice park, and obviously it's not going to be open to the public. And, you know, developers also has a thing with it. You could see Barclays, we're taking like public land. It's not even public, but we're taking land, privatizing land for green space, but it's never open to the public. Do you guys have any plans to open the garden to the rest of Sunset Park?
We don't, and that's just because the way it's laid out, it's in the backyard. It's not open to the street. If we had an area in the front, we would, but in the rear, not feasible. But it's a good idea, and I applaud you for the idea.
Yeah, because it's crazy because, you know, Brooklyn as itself, we have so much limited green space, and just even making a lot of green space more limited doesn't help the rest of our neighborhood. So as you could go back to like all of like building A, building B, building C, I think like to like piggyback what everybody says, like to really include more space for these affordable options, because I don't see why we're giving the most affordable apartments the least amount of space. Like it's like saying, well, if you're low income, you deserve that amount of space, but if you make more money, you deserve that amount of space. And I just don't think it's fair for a lot of people who are like desperately needing these apartments to be shammed in a closet space versus someone in building A that's getting so much more space. But yeah, so that was just my little comment that if it's possible to even move or just have one of the regular developments as building C and then have another one of the other buildings to be fully affordable. And when we're using the term fully affordable, we have to be careful on how we use that term, because when you're saying projects at 80 to 90 to 100% AMI, that is not affordable to working class people. Like, if we really want to be realistic, and we have a lot of immigrant workers who live in Sunset Park and they desperately need housing as well, you can't come to a working class neighborhood and say, hey, we're going to build affordable units, but you actually got to make an income of like 90,000 and above. A lot of people don't have salary jobs like that. A lot of people work hourly. And me, I finally got my first salary job. I could barely afford any of these apartments alone. So it's like, if we really want to speak to working class people, we need to start building apartments that's really catering to people like us. Because if you're not catering to low income people and you're catering to the wealthy, middle class and up and the 1%, Sunset Park is not going to be Sunset Park from now to like 5-10 years. We already seen Williamsburg. Williamsburg was a low income neighborhood. You could kiss Williamsburg goodbye and they're going to become the next Manhattan. And then we already have seen downtown Brooklyn. Downtown Brooklyn used to be low income. Now it's not anymore. We have skyscrapers in downtown Brooklyn. And I don't see why bringing, you know, Manhattan skyscrapers to South Brooklyn makes it any better. And we could even see the process in Coney Island. They're doing the same way with towers. If we really want to build apartments, we really need to be catering to working class people. And I also don't see how we're really primarily putting a lot of the affordable options in one building compared to distributing them equally in all the other buildings. It's kind of giving like income segregation, in my opinion. But I understand that you're adding some apartments, some what is it called? Locked in apartments. Do you guys have any plans? If the city of Yes, I mean, we're in the city of Yes, so these 13 stories, 11 stories, and 8 stories, will that's a part of the city of Yes plan? Okay.
Address some of your affordability comments. So a couple things. You're right about, you know, and you pulled up the information from NYU. You're right about the rents having gone up, obviously, over the last several years, the median rents. And the median income in Community Board 7, which is different than Sunset Park, is $90,450. So one of the challenges in general about affordable housing and trying to make it deeply, deeply affordable is that at a certain point, the rents, the 30% of income that you collect towards rent does not pay the operating costs of maintaining the building. And so the only way to make those units more deeply affordable, especially below 40% of AMI, is to have rental subsidy. And only 1 in 4 people in this country who is eligible for Section 8 receives Section 8. And right now, the Trump administration is talking about putting time limits and work requirements on rental subsidies, right? So I have a friendly request, perhaps, since you all are obviously an activist board and want to take positions. I mean, rental subsidy for everybody that's eligible for is one of the most critical pieces of solving our affordable housing crisis in this country. Most critical. I mean, and that message needs to go to the federal, state, and local level. I mean, for the first time, New York State, as part of the budget that passed in May, not April, included a fund for affordable housing vouchers for targeted populations, right? The city has a program for rental subsidy called City FEPS, but it's time limited, right? So all of these things are critical pieces of the puzzle. It's like, I agree with you 100%, but if it costs, over $1,500, I'm just throwing a number out, $1,500 a month to run an apartment, but I'm collecting $500, then you gotta, in rent, you gotta find a way to make the numbers work. And that's one of the reasons why public housing is where it's at. That's why
So, yeah, but it's not.
I understand.
Can you clarify? Yeah, come, Jeremy, can you?
I it's critical that's like misleading data and misinformation around this that.
Yes, the Furman Center, I pulled it up right now. They say Sunset Park, but it's actually CB7, which is including Windsor Terrace, which has 138,000 AMI. So that is throwing off what the numbers are, but Sunset Park has been around for at least a decade, between 40 and 45,000. And so I think it's really important that we don't, disguise these numbers around cherry picking this as, oh, the Furman Center said this, because we know that basically it's catering, it's cherry picking the numbers to say basically, yes, we have Windsor Terrace. We have some very wealthy people in Windsor Terrace, but that does not mean that then we should start changing what the definition of real affordability is. And I think you know very well that 80 or 100% AMI does not meet a vast majority of people in Sunset Park as to what is affordable. And so let's be real about that.
Have any public members? Oh, sorry.
So one last question on the sustainability aspect. Will you guys be following local law 97 about, okay. Thank you.
I have a quick follow-up question to Damien that came to mind. Would it be possible for the open space to be connected to the commercial space, and possibly, if that were a community-based organization, be made available to the community that way?
Maybe, maybe not, just because there's a conflict with having an outdoor space activated with residents around it for something that's, could have some kind of programming to it, it's meant to be a passive space, it's quiet and so forth and so on, but we could look into that. We don't even know what the space is at the first floor. So if you come up with an idea and we come up with something, we're not gonna discount that, no idea.
Well, so do we have any public members?
The general public.
We'll get to you next, John.
Hi, I'm Shakti Smith. I live on 27th Street. Just want to note that I live in a 3-story building and a lot of our light will be blocked. That's a big life change that I'm mourning. Some of my plants will die. I'll have to get new plants. I'm very interested in what you're saying about being interested in our participation and what might happen in the commercial spaces and in the basement spaces. I've got lots of ideas, so would love to know how do we contact you.
I think the best way to do it is through the board and for us to all work together, and we'll keep coming back to meetings and gathering ideas. But you could always reach out to me. I'll give you my card when we leave. You could always call and whatever else. You don't, need to do it through them.
Very interested. And the last thing is about the construction that someone else brought up earlier. We're next to a very large building that's being built right now. There's a lot of noise, very early, every day, day on, day out, day in, day out. can there be a conversation? What can we ask for as far as there being boundaries around that when construction
Yes.
starts, when construction
Yes.
ends?
If we should get so lucky as to get
happens
to
on
that point,
weekends.
yes.
Okay, great. Looking forward to that.
Could you also designate someone as a point of contact for all of the neighbors who's responsible for managing those inquiries and making sure they get to the appropriate people and then publicizing that in the community? Great. John, did you want to?
Well, any inquiries, they should be made public, so they should go through the community board.
Hi, I'm John Santor. I am a community member who's on these committees, not a board member, a community member. So thank you to everyone who's here, and thanks to the members of the public. I think it's really good to hear all of these questions. My orientation towards this is I'm a renter. I've lived in 4 apartments in Sunset Park. They have all been with roommates. I currently live with 1 roommate. This is the first time that I've lived with fewer than 2 roommates. And if I wanted to afford my small 2-bedroom apartment, which is nothing fancy, it's very nice, but nothing fancy at all, I would have to pay more than 50% of my rent. I'm sorry, 50% of my post-tax income. And I'm a unionized, tenured public school teacher. And I would be paying more than 50% of my post-tax income to afford my apartment. I just want to quickly note one thing Diana said about people who could live with roommates, affordable studios. I get that. And I would rather have families have affordable units, but all of the apartments that I've lived in the neighborhood were apartments that were clearly built for families, and they were turned over into places for multiple adults to live as roommates, essentially strangers living together. So when you put roommates into an apartment, you're also losing a family apartment. So I think it's worth always considering how, small units for single people who can live without roommates, you're actually potentially freeing up family apartments elsewhere. That's just a side comment. Let me just ask questions specific to this. So page 22, can you just clarify those out parcels, the additional parts of the project that are also getting rezoned where it says rezoning area? Sorry, can you just clarify why those would also be rezoned? You can't do a spot rezoning, meaning
The idea of it is that when you comprehensive plan, that it does not single out one particular property. So it covers multiple properties. What I was saying before, though, is that can be amended by the council person who can then remove properties, and there can be changes to it.
Okay, and there was a comment before about one of these walls having no windows. One of the sides
One of the southern facing wall.
would have, and why would it have no windows?
Because a lot line wall is not in New York City. You've seen this all around the city, probably when I bring it up. You're not allowed to have more than, I think it's like 5% openings on that wall. It's to prevent the spread of fire from one building to another. It has to have a firewall on the side of the building.
Okay, but the comment before is that then makes it conducive to just building another building next to
It's
that.
meant to be set up so another building can eventually build next to it. And the comment was not just that, but also how to make that aesthetically pleasing while awaiting for a future development to come. So how to treat that wall.
Okay. When did the design for this project start?
Still not done, to be honest with you. It's still a work in progress. The architect is here. This doesn't have to be the design, like I said at the beginning. Started when we started developing the project, which was about a year and a half ago.
About a year and a half ago. Okay, because the paperwork, I'm trying to get timelines, and like the paperwork was filed. Well, this has been public since last August, right? Last August. So it happened more than a year and a half ago is when
everybody started to develop, we started to internally develop everything.
Okay. So I'm very focused on, again, on this timeline here. When did Fifth Avenue Committee become involved in the project?
It'd be about, yeah, 8 months ago, 9 months ago.
So Fifth Avenue Committee has been involved for about 8 months. Okay. How much is the diocese charging for rent?
I don't have that information. I'll speak to Watermark, see if they could divulge that. I don't know if they're allowed to divulge that.
So if you can get that information, when could we have that? And how could
I don't know. I'd have to ask.
can anyone offer us any sort of estimation?
I can't. I wasn't a part of that deal. We're here for the zoning. There was a transaction, a business deal that was struck between Watermark and diocese. We were not a part of that. And I don't know how much the diocese wants us to reveal or not reveal, but we will reveal whatever we can.
Okay. Can you offer, as based on just this design, what would be the cost to construct each of these 3 buildings?
I can't give you that right now.
Can you give us an approximation?
I'm not here. I can't tell you the nickels and dimes of what it's going to be. I'm not prepared to give that to you. So I'm not trying to be evasive.
Sure.
I honestly, I don't know if anybody's real estate development, it's a risky venture, as you may have heard through the years from different people. It's not something that's a finite of what somebody's going to make. A lot can go on. For example, tariffs could come into play and the cost could triple. Interest rates could go up and not come down. These are all things that we're all dealing with right now. We spoke a little while ago about insurance costs could go through the roof. So I understand what everybody's trying to dial into is like, how much are they going to make and da, da, da. But it's not really as scientific. It's more like, when somebody goes to buy a house, you just kind of you get the numbers together and then you take a leap of faith that it's going to work. We'll get numbers. We'll try and get you some sense of what the numbers are. But it's not anything. I mean, 2 appraisers can come up with different valuations on what things are. So it's hard to pin it down, but I'll try and do the best I can to get it.
Okay. Yeah, and I want to be, I mean, I'm headed in a direction here that's, I think, pretty obvious in terms of my orientation towards this, but let me just keep asking questions. Fifth Avenue Committee, what do you expect to be the budget to construct the building C?
I mean, I can tell you the library project, which was 50 units, was around 38 million, and that wasn't prevailing wage. I wouldn't expect this to be a prevailing wage project, but that was also more than 5 years ago at this point. So well north of that.
So this is a little bit smaller in terms of units, but you're saying it would cost more than 38 million?
I'm sure.
You can
Inflation. I mean, I'm talking, we closed on that construction financing in 2018.
Okay. And in terms of profit on the buildings.
No profit in the affordable housing. I mean, it's 100% affordable.
Uh-huh. So what that means is Fifth Avenue Committee doesn't make profit from the building.
We make a developer fee. We don't make profit. It's for the time and effort that we've put in to build the building.
That's a one-time fee?
HPD structures it differently. So the new construction term sheets are not out yet for HPD yet. And HPD is the city's Department of Housing Preservation and Development. And usually there's a portion up front and there's a portion that's deferred over time, usually over 15 years.
What about for Watermark? How much these buildings as designed with this anticipated rent structure, what would be the kind of profit earned for them?
Again, I'm a zoning attorney and we're representing the zoning application. I don't have their numbers. I can come back to you with a percentage of where they like to see their returns be at, and I'll give that to you.
You can provide that?
Provide what they'd like to see their returns be at, for sure. Nobody can tell you for sure what they will be at. And that's the problem, it's a risk. It's a risky venture. I mean, things go under, things don't always work.
Right. So I just have a couple more questions and I'll try to be brief. Is there something that could be done to significantly reduce the cost of building these buildings in terms of architectural style, construction style? Is there something that they could just be a different kind of building?
Could build them in Pennsylvania. That's about the only thing that could reduce the cost. They can go out to the Poconos, and I'm being dead serious. This is why when you
Yeah.
drive west from New York City, you see housing developments going up all over the place. It's simply the cost of construction in New York City is immense. Everything that has to be overcome is incredibly expensive.
Here's my confusion. So it's ridiculous for me to say that I know more than you. I don't at all, obviously. But no, I don't. But throughout the presentation, we're told, and I feel like this has been said with every rezoning conversation that's happened in recent years, that there are numbers that must be met. And there are realities that have to be taken into account. And it's, you can have a hypothetical goal, but the numbers have to match. But at no point have I seen those numbers presented publicly. So, my comment / question is, can this community receive, based on what you know, based on this design, a detailed breakdown of the cost of construction, the profit margins, and these numbers that you've been referencing in terms of, a certain level that you're trying to reach in terms of feasible affordability? Can that level be explained in detail to the community such that we can see it and we can discuss it?
It could be presented to you in a way that we could have a discussion, whether or not it could be given to you with the explicit detail and the accounting precision that you seem to be looking for. I don't think that could be done until the development is over and the books are looked at in reverse. It's the type of thing that as you're going through, as a developer is going through, they encounter problem after problem after problem that requires some sort of cost cutting, some sort of negotiation, some sort of change to the plan, some sort of elimination of something that was really important to the program. All of a sudden can't come in. The bank will come in. The bank will look at the project. The bank will say, this isn't penciling out. You have way too many 3 bedrooms. We have a market analysis done over here that says 3 bedrooms don't rent. We want you to put 2 bedrooms in over here. And now the developer has to do change orders on the 2 bedrooms. So what I'm trying to suggest to you is that it's not a black and white. What we can give to you is a rough guesstimate of where we're seeing the cost of construction to be and what the percentage of a reasonable return that the owner is seeking to get out of the development. And we can try to give you the rubric for where we're going. It's not going to be, I think, what you have in your mind, which is a profit and loss statement necessarily, like you would see necessarily from an accountant, just simply because we're not there yet. But
I mean, I'll just say this on the affordable, it's very different because it's public money, right? And it's information that Fifth Avenue Committee can share after we're done. So I'm happy to share it on the 100% affordable project. I mean, we have pro formas, it's public information.
After the project's been built, you mean? After?
We can show, pro forma before construction closing and pro forma before perm closing. There's 2 different ones because, as was said, things do change during the process.
Okay. Let me I just want to ask a couple, I'm trying to wrap up here. If we wanted this entire project to be 100% affordable at 50% AMI, how much would that cost in additional funding or financing?
that's impossible. If it was possible, you'd see them everywhere around.
It's impossible because
it's too much money. There's nobody could afford it.
Can you give us a number?
I don't have, she can give you better numbers than I can, but suffice it to say that even the federal government and the city of New York can't afford to create the housing that you're talking about. HPD has a limited amount of money that they will allocate towards fully affordable projects, and probably 60% of the projects that make applications don't qualify. She is involved. The reason why Michelle and Fifth Avenue Committee is here is because they're the best, or one of the best in the city, at knowing the process and creating the formula efficient enough to satisfy the bean counters at HPD to convince them to give her the money. And that's a very difficult thing to do. So imagine this whole room full of people, everybody going to HPD saying, we all want to build affordable housing. Only 30% of them in this room would get it because there's not enough money in the budgets. And that's a direct result of our government not providing it. So the fix that your board has been doing, and I'm looking at this young guy, I don't know your name, and I'm very impressed by you. And what you're all doing is saying, all right, government, you're not doing your job. Let's find a way to coerce the developer to do what the government should be doing. Because none of this conversation should be a developer or you or anybody. It should be New York City coming in and doing it. So I applaud you guys for what you're all trying to do. And I know the numbers you're trying to get to. We're not trying to be evasive when we say we don't have all of the numbers for you, because I'm telling you, if this was easy and everybody had all the numbers up front, we'd all be developers and making millions of dollars.
If you, yeah, I'm really gonna wrap up. Is it
It's a
50,
good
if you had $50 million, could you get this from where it is now to a significantly higher percentage of affordability? It's $1 million per unit. Okay, so if you had $50 million, you could do 50 more units approximately of deeply affordable housing, maybe. I bring this up because
not a linear, unfortunately, it's not linear. That's the problem. And your analysis is, and you're not wrong to think that way. We all think that way, but it's not a linear process.
not linear. Okay. So here's my last comment is this. So I'm glad you're here. I think it's very valuable that you're here. I also think that this is actually late to be here in this way. This project has been under discussion now and under design for a long time. A year and a half, I think, is a long time. The diocese, as was mentioned, as Chair Pena mentioned, has not spoken at all to the community. This is the second time that a diocese has not spoken to the community just recently, because the Diocese of Long Island is moving ahead with a project on 49th Street, and they also did not speak to the community. So we have a proposal here, but now we're told tonight for the first time that this could enter ULURP within approximately 90 days. You said by the fall?
No. By the end of the fall, not 90 days. You're talking about
November,
December.
So by November,
Not
December,
September, not September.
not September.
Not coming back from summer break.
Even so, I've been listening to these conversations for years. The thing that I've heard again and again from community members and board members is that ULURP is, quote, broken, meaning it is too difficult for the community to engage in. It is too time constrained. It is too difficult. There's too much to go over. One thing that the council person could do, because this project will only happen if the council person wants it to happen, is the council person could ask for you not to certify the project until some other form of public engagement has taken place, until some other form of community conversation has taken place regarding the design, the scope, the options, what could be done with this site, both in terms of housing and other uses. That is a conversation that has not happened. It could have happened, led by the diocese. I think Fifth Avenue Committee, again, respectfully, Michelle, I know you've been doing this a long time, but Fifth Avenue Committee could have been part of facilitating that conversation. It doesn't seem like that happens. So my question is, again, why are we brought a proposal with ULURP coming down the pipe? And one of the things the council person could do, and that this committee and this board could ask the council person to do, is ask the developer to pause and to re-engage the community in a systematic, documented way, so that all of this can be looked through and we can get the kind of detail that people want, and we can have a much broader range of opinions expressed. And at that point, there could be a conversation about entering into the ULURP process based on how people feel. I think that would be very constructive.
You have our commitment to that. That's why we're here.
I'm suggesting to the board that the board consider asking the council person to do that, because I think even just hanging out the idea that ULURP is coming changes the entire nature of the conversation, and it changes the mentality of people engaged in the conversation. So
we're here. I can't say it enough. We're here to spend the time with you. We're not trying to pressure anything. We're not here with a bait and switch. We're here to let you analyze it and come up with good input to put into it.
thank you, everyone.
Thank you, John.
By the way, what do you teach?
Government and economics and social studies.
There you go.
You don't
in
say.
New York City, and I'm a pretty novice teacher, to be honest. I do my best. The kids are great. I do my best, but the entire New York City social studies curriculum is about critical thinking, using information to ask questions and to try to engage. The whole government curriculum is about getting people to engage with their government. So that's the spirit also in which I'm asking these questions.
I just want to quickly follow up with. Okay.
My name's Ben Lim. This desk is a lot lighter than I assumed. I own the home that's directly next to Building B. So first of all, living next to an abandoned church isn't great. So my wife and I have always kind of assumed that this was eventually going to happen, but we had crossed our fingers and kind of hoped for the best in terms of what was going to be built there. We just want to echo our concerns about the dramatic difference in height between our building and the building that's going up next door. And would just like to reiterate the request to consider alternatives that might be less dramatic. Question about the comments earlier about the windows on the lot line wall. Does that apply also to the lot line between our building and?
Yes.
That would just be a blank wall? Okay, I've yet to determine whether that's better than windows. And so given our proximity to the building site, we obviously have some unique concerns. How often are you going to wake up our baby? Is the building going to be literally attached to our building? Okay. Is there going to be scaffolding that goes up over our building?
There will be during construction, there'll be a request of you to have access agreement, and there'll be access agreement easements put in place or asked to be put in place. It's how New York City develops all the time. You're entitled to be compensated for that. And if in New York City, New York State, the law is that if the developer does not compensate, you have the right to demand it of them, but you won't be demanding it in this case. But yes.
Okay, yeah, so I mean, this obviously doesn't feel like the right venue to have this conversation. But what is the right way to do that? Like who am I supposed to talk to?
Reach out to me. I'll give you my card afterwards. And as we start going on further, you can reach out to me and we can communicate. Thank you.
Yeah. Do a little dance.
Good evening. I'm Maria Roca, long-term member of this community and witness to a lot of stuff in this neighborhood. I have questions that I'm going to just lay out in a row. There's not enough time tonight to answer them, but to be considered by the board and by everyone here, that I'm not the only one asking these questions. I've had conversations with many people in the neighborhood about this. So about every other development on 4th Avenue, as well as what happened at Arrow, is a conversation that's going on. It's not just a conversation here in this room. So let me just shoot. Are any watermark principals in the room? And who are the watermark principals? 1. 2, are all apartments comparable square footage? And I put that question in before I kind of took a quick look at the breakdown, which is square footage, not the size of each room. When are we getting an analysis of how those numbers, the square footage, the total per unit, was achieved? Bedrooms, living rooms, bathrooms, kitchens. Because, okay, along with that question is, can these apartments be made smaller, and or are this does HPD have any and I have the answer to that. It was and she knows I have. And how much smaller could these apartments be, both for the market rate and the affordable? We're talking about housing people that need a roof over their head. I am a proponent of minimalist housing, and I don't care how rich you are. We're New York City. We know what is being rented for $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 in downtown Brooklyn, in Manhattan. You walk in and you can touch the walls, So let's keep that in mind. We don't need expansive apartments whether at market rate or not, we need units for all people. Most likely, obviously, our working class people, which we give us the quality of life that we all want here. They're the people who bake our bagels, squeeze our orange juices, brew our coffees wherever you get your coffee in the morning. That's who we are. We are a working, whether you're earning $20, $30 an hour, what is that in New York anymore? So let me continue. I digress. Where are the mechanicals cited? Again, I haven't had a chance. I just looked at the drawings, but I think we need that information because I think there might be room for conversation. Okay. Where is the shadow study on the surrounding streets for this? I didn't see anything in the presentation there. And, let me see. Anything else? Are all units ADA compliant in anticipation of aging in place? Whether they are market or they are the quote
That we
unquote.
can answer for you now. They are ADA.
Okay, and what does that mean? What does ADA compliance mean to you? I don't need an answer right now. We want to know what is interpreted as ADA compliance. And then, has the architectural / engineering team for, what is it, Watermark? Yeah, Watermark. Research the basement flooding scenario along the 4th Avenue corridor between the Upper New York Harbor, which is a couple of blocks away from this side and just about every side on 4th Avenue, and 5th Avenue. Thank you.
Any other public members who have questions on the floor? And you'll be next.
Hello, good evening. My name is Adam. I lived in Sunset Park for 95% of my life, so obviously this community means a lot to me. You mentioned before that there is supposed to be a small section of the buildings for commercial space. Would you commit to making sure that that commercial space goes to a small local business versus an S&P 500 Home Depot or Target or something like that?
Definitely work with you to find a locally based business as opposed to a national retailer.
Okay, thank you.
No, go ahead.
Hello, my name is Robert. I live on 29th Street as a renter. I am not a homeowner, but my question being, how will this economically benefit the surrounding neighborhood in the area? Because as history has taught us, is that when there's a high-rise development, the rents around the surrounding vicinity, because I'm on 29th Street again, will increase. And again, this is a blue-collar neighborhood where the majority of the residents are working class. So that's just my one question and my, I guess, yeah, concern. It's not even a guess, it's a concern of mine. Thank you.
I mean, what I'll say is that the displacement pressure is real today, that Community Board 7 and Sunset Park in particular has significant displacement pressures now. And I know there are different studies that show if you build more housing over time, and especially, of course, if you build housing at affordability levels that are appropriate, that it's actually going to reduce the displacement pressure over time, right? And so that may not seem real in the moment. It's because we are behind about 500,000 homes. That is what New York City needs to add in order to deal with the demand. I mean, when Fifth Avenue Committee did the affordable housing lottery for the Sunset Park building, over 60,000 people applied for the 40 apartments, 40 affordable apartments that were available. The other 9 apartments were families coming out of the shelter system. When we built Sunset Ridge, the senior building, with 83 total apartments, of which 56 were available via the lottery, and the remaining were for seniors coming out of the shelter system. We had over 48,000 people apply. The demand is huge. Demand is huge. Like, we need housing in the city. We need affordable housing in the city.
And my second question is, what is the safety, I guess, the safety protocols? You know, should there be a fire or should there be a crisis of sorts like with Hurricane Sandy, I believe, yeah, so.
Once the buildings are built?
Yes.
These are sprinklered buildings, they're brand new construction, so they'll be sprinklered buildings.
And you had mentioned earlier that this is still ink and pen. So is there, again, as John had said earlier, about having a discourse or a discussion with more members of the community before building the developments, and that's what, and involving a representative of the diocese? Thank you.
Yes, to the more conversations. I cannot commit or speak on behalf of the diocese.
Oh, no, of course,
But we will use our best efforts to get them to the table.
Thank you.
Thank you for speaking.
So next we have Nicholas, but before, I just wanted to make a quick comment. So I think another question that we need to also ask and not take into account all of the cost of the development is also, sorry, I lost my track of thought. Why don't you go ahead, Nicholas? It'll come back to me.
Hi, I'm Nick Jackson. I'm a board member. Thank you for being here. My question is, or at least my kind of concern in terms of my vote on the committee is to maximize as much housing as possible and as much affordable housing as possible. You know, there are three areas in the plans that are non-residential right now. I was wondering, in the three areas I'm thinking of are the basement space, the commercial or nonprofit use, and the parking. I was wondering, have you considered whether it was possible to build residential units, especially affordable residential units in that space, and how many, if it is possible, how many units that would generate?
Thank you very much for your comments. It's not possible to build it in the basement because it's a basement, so you can't have apartments in the basement.
I was going to actually ask a follow-up of that. Duplex type apartment isn't possible, right? Where you could build a first floor and a basement.
It just won't add any dwelling units because you can't have a bedroom. So every habitable room needs to have light and air. So you can't have a living room, you can't have a bedroom, you can't have, you know, but go on.
I get it.
Somebody from Bill Yates, our Fifth Avenue Committee's Director of Housing Development, actually is online, and he has his hand up. I don't know if he wants to answer one of these questions. I don't know if it's possible to unmute him. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Is that okay? Okay, thanks. I just noticed it.
William Yates, you could unmute yourself. We see your hand is up. Maybe. Oh.
Hi, can folks hear me?
Yes.
Now we can, yeah.
Go ahead, Bill.
We could hear you.
Sorry about that. Good. Yeah, no, my hand is not up,
No problem.
believe it or not. But if we need
Beg
the
to differ.
presentation again, yeah, just let me know, Jeremy, and I'm happy to share.
I can answer more questions, the question more directly. The commercial space, yes, can that become residential? Yes. Is it attractive for residential? No, it's on 4th Avenue. It's really on the avenue. It's not the most desirable place to be down at grade and have your apartment. So that's why that building, the 3,000 square feet, has been kept as commercial. But the other spaces, both in the 5th Ave, Building C and Building B, at the ground floor, have all been optimized. We share that vision. We are trying to maximize every square inch for residential use.
And what about the parking?
Well, the parking, no, that's in the cellar level, so that can't be. Or the basement level.
Yeah, and I'm sorry about that. So it came back to me. Just to Michelle's point, and another question is, are we really going to alleviate displacement pressures by building all of these market rate apartments. I had recently called, there's a development that's being marketed as Sunset Park Luxury Apartments at 875 4th Avenue. For a two-bedroom apartment there is $5,600, and that's now. So you can only imagine all of, just how much the market rate units are gonna be for these developments when they come up. Maria had asked before, is there a rep from Watermark here? So Watermark Capital, they're also involved in another project on 62nd Street and 8th Avenue where they're a part of this project. They're going to build a 28-story tower. And it looks like it's going to have 497 market rate units, zero affordability. So if you do the math and you include all of the market rate apartments that they have in this project, and that one, that's over 600 units, market rate, that, we can only imagine how much they're going to be. So I guess my question, and I know your hands are tied behind your back, but really for Watermark that, this is a small fraction of what we're asking for them. Can they, not worry so much about their profit margins, but can they commit to lowering the AMI so that folks in this community, because AMI changes every year, it goes up. So that's something else to keep in mind. So by the time these buildings go up, what is the AMI going to be at 30%? It's not going to be what it was a couple of years ago. So, I mean, it just feels like Watermark is already, I'm sorry to say this, getting over by having all of these market rate apartments that they're going to be benefiting from on 62nd and 8th Avenue. Why can't they just lower down and give folks in this community a fair chance so that they can, they can stay here? And also the unit sizes are just really bad. 400 square feet for a studio, like that's.
But we'll look at the studio sizes. To answer your respond to your comments, Watermark is not the principal developer of the 8th Avenue
No, I
project.
that,
They're
but
just, they're an investor in that project.
But they are an investor and they are going to benefit from that.
They certainly are, but that project, every, every project's different. That one was created before affordable housing, MIH, that went through a rezoning 15 years ago.
Understand all of my
so,
concern is
yeah,
not the developer and their, their profit margins. We're here to represent the community and make sure that people have a fair shake. I just have one more question. I'm sorry to be hogging. Before, Michelle, did Fifth Avenue Committee approach St. Rocco's before the developer? It just seems that there's like this weird, relationship at play where Watermark is serving as sort of the middleman. Fifth Avenue Committee, they were able to produce 100% affordability at the library site. Was it ever considered for Fifth Avenue Committee to reach out to St. Rocco's so that there could be 100% affordability at that site?
I can't say that we've reached out to them recently. I want to say that right after OBT shifted over, I think we inquired, but obviously nothing came of that. So one thing that Watermark has an existing relationship with the diocese. They've developed several properties, I think through ground lease, maybe Eric can speak to that. So I think they have people they work with.
Anyone else have questions on the floor? You just got to come up to the mic.
But I think it's also fair that if someone, a representative, at least a representative from the diocese should be here. We're not talking about the big cheese or, the person that is in charge. We're talking about someone who is the representative of St. Rocco's or of the Brooklyn Diocese to come here and have a discourse with the people so that, because I understand, they have the Watermark group people, but we also need the input of the diocese as well. If there's a relationship, then why not take advantage of it? Thank you. That's just a comment. It's not a question. Thank you.
I'd like to add to that the diocese their headquarters is within our community district. It's a block from my apartment. I see men in collars walking down the street all the time. they should come and say hi to us. So whatever kind of encouragement
Yeah,
you
go.
can do.
It
it
would
would
make our
be
job
well
easier. We will
appreciated.
encourage it.
The worst case scenario, a bunch of protesters with signs show up a block away from my apartment complaining that there's not enough affordable housing in Sunset Park, you know what I mean? Yeah. And then afterwards, I'll make them all cocktails in my apartment.
Are there any questions from folks on the line? You can raise your hand if you have any questions. No hands up. Okay. John? You can get the mic.
Because there are so many good questions, I think, being asked and so many points of view to be considered, and because the diocese has not spoken to the community about this project, I would propose a resolution for either land use or housing or both, to ask, I think to ask the developer, both Fifth Avenue Committee and Watermark, to publicly commit to not entering the Euler process until a robust community discussion has taken place regarding this project. That discussion should involve the council person, members of the community, the diocese, the developers involved. And until that discussion has taken place, ULURP should not be engaged by the developer. And we would be asking the developers, both Fifth Avenue Committee and Watermark, to publicly commit to that, pending that discussion. Is that too vague? Does that make sense?
Quorum call, sorry, guys.
Okay, so this is a quorum call, same as attendance.
With land use?
We'll start with land use. When I call your name, please acknowledge. We'll start with Diana Gonzalez.
Here.
Thank you. Erin Keith.
Here.
Thank you. Joan Body. Gabino Morales Escamilla. Julia Melzer Harris. Thank you, but you do not count towards quorum. Nicholas Jackson. Thank you. Jeremy Kaplan. Paul Mack. Antoinette Martinez. Thank you. Karen Rolnick. Thank you. Damaris Santiago. John Santori. Thank you, but you do not count towards quorum. Maria Roca. Thank you, but you do not count towards quorum. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 in the room. You need 6 for quorum, so land use doesn't have it. Housing, Antoinette Martinez. Thank you. Damien Andrade. Thank you. Jalea Bailey. Jeremy Kaplan. Erin Keith. Thank you. Maria Roca. Thank you. Unfortunately, you don't count towards quorum. John Santori. Thank you. Unfortunately, you don't count towards quorum. Faye Walker. Nicholas Jackson. 4 in the room. You need 4. You have a quorum.
The Housing Committee requests that Watermark and Fifth Avenue Committee publicly commit to not entering the ULURP process until a robust public discussion has taken place regarding this proposal involving the council person, Watermark, the diocese, Fifth Avenue Committee, and any other involved or affected parties.
Help a little bit to clean up that language. They're already in the ULURP process. So I think what you mean is not certify.
So asking them to, the developers, the Fifth Avenue Committee and well, I guess it's Watermark would be the one doing the certification, asking Watermark to publicly commit to not certifying pending that robust public discussion.
Do we have a second? Do we have to do a hand vote?
It's up to you to decide how.
That's if there's no objection to adopting the resolution.
Is there no objection? Is there any objection? We have one. Roll call.
This is just the housing committee.
I have to say this is my first time doing this in a long time because we have not had quorum. So I'm sorry if I'm rusty at this.
So a yes supports John's motion, a no is against the motion, and an abstention counts as no vote. Antoinette Martinez. Antoinette Martinez, yes. Damian Andrade. Damian Andrade, of course. Julia Bailey. Jeremy Kaplan. Aaron Keith. Aaron Keith, yes. Maria Roca. Maria Roca, yes. John Santori. John Santori, yes. Faye Walker. Nicholas Jackson. Nicholas Jackson, no. 5-1. Motion carries.
So, all right, I know it's late. Thank you to everyone who stuck around. Thank you to the team to come present to us today, and we'll see you soon. Good night, everyone.
Oh, wait.
Do I need to move to, no? Okay, great. Goodbye, go away.
It'll be in tomorrow.
Right.